Na, 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 na. Ba-na, 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 ba-na. I love chip tunes. Chip tunes for the win.
Greetings, Sensei, Mr. Miyagi.
Welcome.
No, I just wanted to come up here and elaborate on something that you had up there that I believe might have some diligence to it. And that's the part of the Christianity, because, like, I don't speak on all Christianity because I separate it from the ancient Christianity, because this modern Christianity seems to not be nothing like the ancients that I read on. So with that being said, I think that there is some deceiving going on, since the ancient Christians didn't believe like the modern Christians. That's the only thing that I see that's off with Christianity. Then, not only Christianity, I like to focus on, you can see the same thing with a lot of the Abrahamic religions, to where they're nothing like how their predecessors was in the 21st century. Father, it's the way they worship.
Well, yeah, obviously the church has changed, but that's kind of like the point of the church. It's not supposed to be like the same thing for thousands of years.
It does supposed to be the same thing. It only changed when the Council of Nicaea came down. And prior to that, it was Canaanite origins, where all your Abrahamic
The,
religions come from,
the early
right?
church, the early church,
So
the early
excuse
Christians,
me, I'm sorry.
the early Christians had a lot of like freedom, and there wasn't like consistent order structure that we had
That's what
today.
I'm saying. Before the Catholicism and the invasion of Rome in the 17 AD, prior to the Visigoths bringing their forms onto the way of what we would call Christianity, right? So, like, we can see where the changes started to start up at, but to call it the original of how it was, that would be incorrect when we know it was a Canaanite religion, and it was no Christianity around in the
It's not
times
a
of
Canaanite
Yahweh,
religion.
or
What are you talking
Yahshua, I
about?
should say.
It's not a Canaanite religion. That's nonsense.
Then what would it be then? It's a Canaanite religion all day. That's what the land of
Not
Canaan means.
no, no. It started
What
with
does it mean then?
what does what
Where
mean?
did it start then? Where did it start then?
With
Because we
Abraham.
know that the Christians come from Judaism, and we know that Judaism is a Canaanite religion. Like, let make it make some sense.
It's not a Canaanite religion.
Is it then? If it's not an Abrahamic religion, like, what are your ideologies? Like, where do you get your information from? Like,
What are you talking about? I read books.
you call it? Do you call it an Abrahamic Canaanite religion, or
Why
like
would
what
it?
area did
Why
they
would
come
it's
from? Did they
not
come from
fucking?
Canaanite,
Where do you get
the
this
land of
Canaanite?
Canaan?
Where are you getting this Canaanite? What the fuck are you talking about? It's ancient Israel.
Canaanite. I'm gonna spell Canaanite for you since you don't know. Canaaanite.
Dude, I'm about to fucking pick your ass up.
It's a such place. It talks about the Bible. That's what your Bible is talking about. You got Christian up there. The Christian religion links back to Canaanite religion. I'm not
No, it
making this
doesn't.
up. Just
Yes,
simply
you are.
Google it. Like, Google it, and then, or put me up here on the big screen and I'll Google it for you.
It it goes to Judaism, not Canaanite religion.
Ism is a Canaanite religion. That's what I
No,
say. Y'all so educated, but y'all not educated.
it's not
Y'all
a Canaanite
like lost.
religion. The Jews worshipped Yahweh.
Is a Canaanite god, a deity. You ever heard of the Elohim gods when Genesis says, let us make men in our image? Not only talking about Yahweh, but talking about the other gods that made you. It says, let us make men in our image. Now, Yahweh had permission to get a chosen tribe, which is the 12 tribes that y'all talk about. But who he had to get permission from? The other gods that helped make you. He didn't make you all by himself. Surely the text says he did not. But carry on.
Carry on. I don't know, man. It's just like you don't know what you're talking about, right? Um,
It's public information. I'm looking it up right now. Can you prove me wrong? Why would you want to put me on the big screen so I can bust your head and crack your head?
yeah, I mean, I have a book here, right?
Because I think that you're a deceiver and you like the propaganda, but when somebody come up here with the receipts, you won't let them up.
What are you talking about? What receipts? You're just like coming up here saying a bunch of nonsense.
How am I saying nonsense when I said Christianity links back to Judaism? Even you said that, and Judaism is a Canaanite religion, but you don't know that Judaism is a Canaanite religion because you're uneducated, but you want to talk about Christianity. But carry on.
All right, see this? This is a book. See that? Can you see my camera? See that
Showing
book?
me a book. Where does it say that we're not connected? Christianity is not connected to Canaanite religion. Show me something that says that.
You're ignorant, right? Okay, so we're talking about subversion of culture. So the books talk saying that the Jewish culture was subversive. Okay, this is what the biblical text indicates. We know
This is what AI says. I typed in, was Christianity comes from the Canaanite religion. Yes. Christianity comes from the Canaanite religion.
no.
So, like, what are you talking about?
I'm trying to educate you, right? Okay, so we know how far both the Old Testament and New are impregnated by cultures roundabout. We can find traces of Egyptian texts, Job, and many other books, and Assyrian Chaldean texts throughout the Hebrew Bible. Even in Ecclesiastes, there's a thinking of an incontestably Greek or Egyptian origin. Everyone knows, too, that Paul draws much inspiration from Stoicism in his moral advice. But can we be sure that these cultural texts express God's revelation? Or might it be that revelation does not belong exclusively to the Jews? Are there not manifestations of it among other peoples? In my view, the crucial point in the borrowings is in the way in which the texts are treated. Never are Babylonian or Iranian or Egyptian or Greek texts inserted just as they are in their own identity. They are used, and they are always used polemically. That is to show the point of the text in question is
And who read this?
false.
Because that looked like a fairly new book. Okay, because this is what I'm reading. The most widespread belief of the archaeologists, historical scholars, says that the origins of Judaism lies in the Bronze Age pantheism of Canaanite religion. Judaism is a element of other Semitic religions, such as Babylon religions, which reflect on earlier prophetic books like the Tanakh. So, like, I don't know what you talking about, but carry on.
I'm talking about why. Look, I'm explaining this, right? So throughout the Bible, when we're talking about the surrounding cultures around Israel, there is what situation is called reorientation. So one of the forms of revelationary action is
Blasphemous to change the old law into some new law or some new Christianity Trinity that did not exist up under.
You're an unreasonable person, dude. You're not even listening to me. So I'll just read this. Okay. Let's see here. Old Testament canon policies around the death metaphors. Subversion of culture. This seems even more peculiar. Yet this is precisely what the biblical text indicates. We know how far both the Old Testament and the New are impregnated by the cultures round about. We find traces of Egyptian texts in Job and many other books, and Assyrian Chaldean texts throughout the Hebrew Bible. Even in Ecclesiastes, there's a thinking of an incontestably Greek and Egyptian origin. Everyone knows, too, that Paul draws much inspiration from Stoicism in his moral advice. But can we be sure that these cultural texts express God's revelation? Or might it be that the revelation does not belong exclusively to the Jews? Are there not manifestations of it among other peoples? In my view, the crucial point in the borrowings is the way in which the texts are treated. Never are Babylonian or Iranian or Egyptian or Greek texts inserted just as they are, in their own identity. They are used, and they are always used polemically, that is, to show that the point of the text in question is irrelevant and false. Throughout the Bible, as regards to surrounding cultures, there is what situationalists call reorientation. One of the forms of revolutionary action that they have proposed is that of taking a text and giving its objective sense a new turn so as to make it say something else. This is exactly what the Jewish and Christian writers did. They took a text and applied it to different situation. They changed certain terms and put the text in a context that altered its original sense. Okay? Thus, the Egyptian poem that is inserted into Job is radically changed because it is related to the God of Israel. Again, the stories in Genesis, as is recognized today, are constructed in a polemic against Babylonian cosmogonies. Stoic morality ceases to have its alleged meaning and universal reach when it is set in the movement and death and resurrection of justification and sanctification. Even though the phrases remain the same, the meaning is radically broken. So what we're saying here is that when Jews and Christians take things from the cultures that they're surrounded by and incorporate them into Judaism or Christianity, it's not the same thing. The meaning changes because of the context of the God of Abraham and Moses, Yahweh. Okay. So this happens in many different ways. Humor is one of the ways employed by the Hebrews. They take a word and by changing a letter give it a totally new sense. They modify the application of a quotation, as Paul does with the Cretan proverb. They play on words in such a manner as to ridicule the text or person or to achieve a very different effect. So we take things. Here he mentions the Canaanite thing, right? Okay, some examples are very familiar, such as calling the bull of Canaanite worship a calf, making Baal into Beelzebub, the god of the flies. Okay? So they take Canaanite gods and they give them new meaning. Thus, the Hebrews are set in the midst of cultures. They do not shut themselves off from them. They know and use them, but they make them say other things. This is the subversion of culture. An interesting project that has never been undertaken would be that of measuring the distance between an original text and the same text as it is inserted in the Bible, or of analyzing the process of reorientation that is used. It would serve as a model for what we should do with our own culture. Yeah, so no issue. Oh, you guys borrowed from Canaanite culture? Well, yeah, duh. You think that's like a big gotcha? No. Ain't no thing. What book is, I'm reading from the Subversion of Christianity. Jesus changed the laws. Yeah. He didn't really change the laws. We would say he fulfilled the laws. He showed us the true meaning of the law. The author is Jacques Ellul, the French dude. It's a really good book. But yeah, so it doesn't matter that like the Jews, what's going on with my browsers? Weird. There you go. It doesn't really matter that the Jews borrowed from other cultures. Like we know that. It doesn't. So what? Judaism is false, and Christianity, by extension, is false because they mention a Canaanite god in the Bible. Like what? So stupid. Of course, like they're people that they're not like shut off from the cultures around them. They talk about the cultures just like we're in America, right? But we are influenced by other cultures. So like Japanese anime is really popular. Okay. So America has anime from Japan. So like back in the day, the same thing. Like the things that were popular in cultures around Israel would influence Israel just like today. Big deal. What does that prove? Silly deconstruction Christians. So I guess I started Ryan Mullins' paper on time, but I was pretty discouraged because it's a difficult read for me. I'm not very smart. So I guess I could try to go back to reading that paper. It was the divine time maker. The divine time maker, I think I was reading. Or is that his book? Oh no, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was right here. To the creationist option. So what were we talking about? It's been like a couple days. We were talking about a review I already read, setting the stage. Oh yeah, he went over the thing about like tensed logic and tenseless logic. So tensed logic was logic that like had past, present tense. So like is going to or did as opposed, okay. I remember. Later, I'm going to, and this morning, that's like tensed, right? Okay, the creationist option. Creationism is one possible view about how God is responsible for the existence of time. Recall that creation involves God freely causing a contingent entity to exist. So the creationist is saying, the creationist is saying that God freely causes time to exist. Most creationists claim that God is responsible for the existence of time by creating time with the universe. This view can be found in Christian thinkers like Augustine and William Lane Craig. I believe that it is also found in the thought of Thomas J. Ord. Before moving forward, it is worth noting that Augustine affirms divine timelessness, whereas Craig and Ord affirm divine temporality. In the discussion below, I shall explain where these thinkers agree and disagree. As it turns out, they agree on quite a bit. All agree that presentism is true. Augustine, Craig, and Craig agree that God exists in a timeless state of affairs without the universe. Ord, however, denies that God ever exists without a universe. All agree that God creates time in the sense that God creates change. This is because the underlying commitment of all creationists is that time exists if and only if change occurs, and such change can only be brought about by God's causal activity. So 2.1, we got Augustine. In this subsection, I shall focus on the thought of Augustine and other thinkers who follow in his steps. Call this Augustinian understanding of creationism. To start the discussion, consider how an Augustinian might answer the question, what is time? The Augustinian creationist does not really answer this fundamental question. And Augustine famously admits he does not know what time is. Yet Augustine is deeply committed to presentism and feels like he can address questions about the structure of time, its measurement, and so forth without an answer to the fundamental question, what is time? An Augustinian might be tempted to say we don't really need an answer to what time is. Even though the creationist does not seem to give a direct answer to the fundamental question, she does offer an answer to the conditions for the existence of time. Even though Augustine doesn't know what time is, he says he feels confident that if nothing passed away, there would be no past. If nothing were approaching, he says there would be no future. If nothing existed, he says there would be no present time. As he explains, time must involve a flow of things coming into existence and of things passing out of existence. If the present moment did not contain this flow towards non-existence, Augustine thinks time would be indistinguishable from God's timeless present. Further, Augustine thinks that time cannot exist without some creature existing. Why? For Augustine, God is timeless and immutable. God is immutable if and only if God cannot change intrinsically or extrinsically. Only created things are capable of change. Hence, Augustine thinks that time cannot exist unless there are mutable and changing things that exist. Augustine explains as follows. There could have been no time had not a creature been made whose movement would affect some change. It is because the parts of this motion and change cannot be simultaneous, since one part must follow another, that in these shorter and longer intervals of duration, time begins. Now, since God, in whose eternity there is absolutely no change, is the creator and ruler of time, I do not see how we can say that he created the world after a space of time had elapsed, unless we admit also that previously some creature had existed whose movements would mark the course of time. For context, in this passage, Augustine is addressing a puzzle about God's prior existence. Augustine, like many Christian theists, affirms that there is a state of affairs where God exists without creation. This is an entailment from the fact that God does not begin to exist and the fact that the universe does begin to exist. For Augustine, this gives rise to several difficult questions. For example, why didn't God create the universe sooner? Also, does God change when God creates? With regards to the first question, call this the sooner objection. The sooner objection can come in different forms, but one popular form tries to show that there is an incompatibility between God's perfect rationality and his choice to create the universe when he did. If God is perfectly rational, it might seem like God would have a good reason for creating when he did. What could that reason possibly be? If there's no good reason, then it might seem like God has no reason to create at all. Here's a version of the sooner objection inspired by Leibniz. God is perfectly rational. God always performs an action for a reason. And in the absence of a reason, God will not perform an action. God could have created the universe sooner. There are some Christian theists who accept that God could have created the universe sooner. On the surface, this might not seem so bad. However, with a bit more precision, one can derive a contradiction from the assumptions that are built into God could have created the universe sooner. In saying that God could have created the universe sooner, one is assuming that God created the universe at some particular moment of time. Call this moment of time t. So assume that t is later than some earlier moment of time t. Like tx is later than ty. In affirming that God could have created the world sooner, one is also assuming that it is possible for God to have created the universe at this earlier moment of time. If God could not have created the universe at the earlier moment of time, then God could not have created the universe sooner than when he created it. Hence, in affirming that God could create the universe sooner, one will also affirm the following. God creates the universe at time at tx. God could have created the universe at ty instead of tx. God cannot create the universe at both ty and tx. With this more precise statement of what seems to be in the mind of God creating the universe sooner, the argument can continue. So if the time before creation and the time when he created it are equally good moments for God to create the universe, then God does not have a reason to choose either the time before creation or the time of creation over the other at which to create the universe. So the time before creation and the time at creation are equally good moments for God to create the universe. Thus, God does not have a good reason to choose either the time before or the time at when he created the universe over the other at which to create the universe. If God doesn't have a good reason to choose either the time before or the time he chose, then God does not create the universe at either time. Thus, God does not create the universe at either time. So, therefore, God does not create the universe when he creates the universe. And so God does not create the universe at the time he did, and God creates the universe at the time he did. So it's a contradiction. This is a clear contradiction, so a Christian theist will need to reject one of the premises in the argument in order to remove the contradiction. For Augustine, the answer to the sooner objection involves rejecting that God could create the universe sooner. This answer relies on Augustine's commitment to divine timelessness and his conditions for the existence of time. Given that time cannot exist without creatures who undergo change, there can be no time prior to the existence of the universe. Why didn't God create sooner? For Augustine, there is no sooner because there is no time in the pre-creation state of affairs where God exists without the universe. Thus, Augustine can easily avoid the sooner objection. Oh, we got someone requesting.
Yo, hello.
Well,
So basically, my deconstruction is if you can deconstruct the pickle from the burger and the cheese from the bun, what does that make? A bunless patty. No cheese, no pickle, no sauce, nothing. Just bread. Is that how you like to eat your cheeseburger?
no.
I like to eat my cheeseburger with all the toppings. Don't you?
Yeah.
Do you like a side of fries with that?
Yeah.
What's your favorite meal from Wendy's?
Frosty.
Huh?
The Frosty.
The Frosty, there you go. That's probably the best one you can get.
Has
You know
anyone
what?
ever told you look like a McMuffin?
What?
Has anyone ever told you look like a McMuffin?
A McMuffin?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you kindly.
Kind of sound how I picture a McMuffin would look.
Bro, you know what I picture you as?
What's that?
A chocolate milkshake.
That's sweet of you.
Nah, matter of fact, you remind me of you know that combo you can get from McDonald's? It's with the Big Mac, pretty sure.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, do you accept God as your creator?
I don't.
Oh my gosh, why not?
I just don't. Can I ask you a question though about presuppositionalism?
Yeah.
Do you think it's ever a good idea to presuppose a view?
Well, presupposition just refers to foundational beliefs. Everyone has presuppositions. It's just a foundational belief, a starting point belief.
But as humans, like we're all in the same boat, right?
No. So we interpret the world
Well,
through
we all have the same tools to discover what the truth is.
no. Because so Christians get truth directly from the source of truth through revelation. Whereas if you're not a Christian, you don't get it.
Okay, so there's an atheist growing up in an atheist family, and there's a Christian growing up in a Christian family. What's the difference when they go to discover truth? What's the tools they're using? Like, what's the difference in the tools they're using to discover reality?
They exist in the same world. They exist in a world that God's revealed himself in. But the atheist has a cognitive dissonance where they reject that they're living in an environment of revelation, which entails
I'm asking about the tools they need to know what the truth is.
you need revelation to know what the truth is.
Okay, but before revelation's given to you, what do you need? Like, you need something, right?
There is no before revelation is given to you. We all live in an environment of revelation. It's just some people have, what cognitive dissonance is?
Wait, so atheists can't convert and be born again Christians?
Do you know what cognitive dissonance is?
Of course.
Oh, of course. Okay, so atheism is just like a type of cognitive dissonance where you have two beliefs that contradict each other, right? That's all.
Cool.
Where like the Christian doesn't have that cognitive dissonance. That's it.
So we both have the same tools to discover what truth is, right?
We're both the only way truth can be possible is if we're in an environment of revelation. And so we're both in an environment of revelation. But like
So,
if atheism were true and we weren't in an environment of revelation, then truth would be impossible because we'd be like in the matrix.
so how do you enter an environment of revelation?
Everyone's in an environment of revelation. You can't rationally deny it.
Okay, so how do you discover that you're in this environment of revelation?
I mean, it's obvious. So you either accept it or you live a fantasy. It's like an elephant in the room. So it's plain. God's invisible qualities are like plain and obvious, unambiguously known to all people that you couldn't rationally deny them.
Give me a second.
Yeah. Run away. Oh, since you asked so nicely, actually, I should have let the woman in, though. Well, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Are you a Christian?
Yeah, I'm a Christian.
Okay. Can I understand your take for where you're coming from?
Well, I'm just saying that, like, atheism is irrational. It's like an emotional position. They just don't want Jesus to be true, but they couldn't rationally deny what Jesus claims to be.
How do you acknowledge agnostics?
Yes, Castle. Oh, I have a meme for agnostics.
Really?
Yeah. I made
What
it.
is it?
Boop. There it is. So you can't really be an agnostic. Because, like,
In a way, that's pretty correct towards my view, to be honest.
well, an agnostic is someone who's neutral, but you can't be neutral to, like, the Christian God, because the Christian God is obvious. And, like, the Bible says everyone knows the Christian God. So
Of
if
course,
you
the Bible says that. My main, the place that I come from is, can you prove the existence of God without the Bible?
I mean, I guess, like, we need a revelation, though, but so the Bible would be a type of revelations. We would have a natural revelation, though, as well. So, like, we experience patterns in the world, for example. And so the patterns in the world we example can only be explained by, like, ultimate intention, ultimate design. And that can only be the case if, like, Christianity is true.
So, what is the proof that there's intelligent design?
So we experience patterns in the world.
No, I understand that, but like, what is the proof?
Yeah, we just do like an argument where I'll say, like, so that we're either in a world of intention, like intent. There's either intention behind the design of the universe, or there's not intention behind the
Right.
design of the universe. And if there's not intention behind the design of the universe, we would not see these patterns that we experience.
So you think patterns cannot occur without intention?
Of course, because, like, anything that exists could presumably have, like, an unlimited, infinite amount of properties.
Right. So if we are that one property in that unlimited amount, in that infinity, then what?
Well, here's the problem, though. So, like, we experience, like, multiple things that have the same property, right? Like, there's multiple trees, and all the trees have the property tree. Okay, so that's the problem, because we wouldn't, if there was no intention, if nothing was purposing these things that exist to share these properties, there'd be no reason to think that they share properties, because since there could be, like, infinite amount of properties a thing could have, It'd be like if you imagine you had like two dice and the dice had like infinite amount of numbers, like hypothetical, obviously, because that can't. So that you have two dice, they're infinite amount of numbers. That's like anything that any two things that exist in the world would have infinite properties, and the numbers represent their properties. And then you roll the two dice, they're never going to land on the same number because there's literally an infinite number set that they could hit. And
Right.
so when we see a patterns, we're seeing things that like they landed on the same number. So in the world where like you're just throwing an infinite dice and expecting them to land on the same number, like that's not going to happen. So
Can I have an example of this?
That was the example.
No, like a real example, like a practical one in real life.
That's basic. That's the example.
So you're saying your example is that your dice, even though it may have infinite like probabilities, will always land on the same couple of numbers.
In the Christian world, it's not random, so the dice are weighted. So that he purposes things to have the same properties. There is intention that these two.
So my question is, do you have evidence that the dice are weighted?
Dude, I'm saying the evidence is what we experience. We experience things that share the same properties.
Right. So do you experience something that is sharing a property that is divinely intervened upon?
Bro, what I'm saying is it wouldn't make sense for there to be a pattern if there's no mind behind the pattern that's like purposing the pattern.
Right. So you must observe a pattern for this to be a claim that you make, right?
We observe patterns everywhere, and to think that they're accidental that can't be.
Okay, so in what example? I need an example.
I gave you the example with the dice.
Yeah, but a real example, something that's practical, that happens in real life. Dice aren't weighted in real life.
You're just being obstinate, man.
What does that mean?
It means you're just like bickering with me, basically, because I gave you an example.
But your example is of weighted dice. But the thing is, in reality, dice aren't weighted.
It's two options, right? It's either there's intention or there's not intention, right? If there's intention,
right. So what is your actual example to prove intention? Like a real practical example, not something that's hypothetical.
Dude, you are pathetical. We're doing a thought experiment, right? So if there's no intention, then the patterns don't make sense because we wouldn't expect to see patterns in like.
Give me an example of one pattern.
Okay, so like imagine you tip over some milk and it spills onto the floor. You wouldn't expect the milk that spills onto the floor to have like a pattern of like the map that's like a map of London or something like that, right?
Right. I mean, like a real example, though.
Okay. Thank you for coming. I wish you well. You're very unique. Good Lord. I mean, a real example. I just fucking gave you multiple examples. What a moron.
Hello.
Hello.
What time is it where you are?
It's 5:25.
Okay, I'm 6:25.
Oh, okay.
I'm not trying to be rude.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, what do you mean when you're using the word deconstructing? How are you using that term? What do you mean by it?
I don't know. I'll have to look it up. To critically reevaluate like the belief, the position, to acknowledge doubts and questions about atheism, rejecting like the core doctrines of atheism.
But there are no core doctrines of atheism is my question. So what is it that you're actually trying to debunk with the belief that there is not a God? I'm just wanting clarification so we can have a good conversation.
Yeah, I just evaluate the position and I show that it's impossible. It can't be. It's like can't be true.
That atheism can't be true?
Yeah, atheism is like logically impossible.
How so?
Um. So to have logic, we need the Christian God, because like the Christian God causes logic to be true, and in atheism, nothing would cause logic to be true. So it's illogical to have like a position that can't like explain logic.
So then where does your logic come from?
God.
Okay.
Mhm.
Then
God's rational, so it makes sense that we are rational, because we're made in God's image. Whereas like in atheism, the world isn't rational. Like a rock isn't rational, and ultimately at one point Earth was just rocks, and there was no life on Earth at the beginning. And so you guys are saying that like in the atheist story, that rational beings came out of rocks, which are irrational. So that doesn't explain why we are rational, but the Christian story does.
where do atheists make that claim?
So they don't believe God created us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just going to follow that, like,
But atheism isn't a claim. You see, Christianity is the claim. The book is the claim. The I believe in God, that's the claim. Not being a theist coming in and saying this is why that may not be true isn't a philosophy.
it's a metaphysical assumption. So theism is a metaphysical position where we're saying that like there's a creator who created the universe and is distinct, different from the universe. That's theism. And so anyone who does not affirm that model would be an atheist. So if you don't believe there's a creator that created the world that's distinct from the world, then you would be an atheist.
Which Genesis story do you believe?
I just believe the Bible.
Okay, well, there are two accounts in Genesis. Which one is true?
They're both true.
They can't both be true, hon. You need to tell me. In Genesis, which creation story is true?
They're both true.
How?
How not? Why can't they both be true?
You're making the claim that two stories in the Bible simultaneously, side by side, are true.
The whole Bible's true, yeah.
Tell me which one of the Genesis stories.
Both true.
Both are true. So okay, can you tell me what the first one says?
No.
No. Can you tell me what the second one says?
No.
Okay. So you don't know.
I know they're both true.
You can't know. Well, then what are they? What are you telling me that's true?
The Bible's true. I'm saying that I'm
Okay.
proving
See,
the Bible.
the Bible's true. Okay, but which part of the Bible story is the account of Genesis that you go by? Do you pick the first one or do you go by the second one? Because there are two. That's my question.
The whole are you like not listening to me? Like this is like a dog. In Proverbs, it says a dog goes back to its vomit.
I'm in Genesis. I'd like to start at the beginning.
But I feel like you're in Proverbs where the dog's going back to its vomit, like a fool who repeats its folly. Because I've like answered your question 3 or 4 times.
Oh, really?
You're just gonna keep asking the same question over and over again.
Well, because you're not answering the question. You're
I
saying both,
believe
but both
the-
can't be true.
Oh, why?
You're not getting it.
Why so? Why is it that both can't be true?
Because you can't have, you tell me, read Genesis 1
I'm
1 and Genesis 1
I'm
2
not
and
the
tell me
one
how
that
they correlate.
I'm not.
And
This is
then
your
please,
problem. This is not a me problem. This is a you problem. You said they can't be true. Why can't they both be true?
because because your stories contradict each other one right after the other.
Oh, so they contradict. So contradictions are bad. So first of all, in atheism, you couldn't say contradictions are bad because you don't have logic, right? So that's a problem for you.
Well, hold on a second. Let's go back to the logic part. And this is where I'm trying to discuss the logical part.
Okay.
Is in Genesis, are you thinking that there's plants and animals and living things before the sun and the water?
Sure, why
Like
not?
Genesis and science, like anybody who could like physically read at a third grade level and understand a little bit of science can read Genesis and say, that doesn't make sense, and can tell that this is an entire allegory
But how do you know science is true?
because it is demonstrable.
Did science, so science proved science is true? Isn't that circular?
Science proving science
Yeah, isn't that
is data
circular?
and measurement. And
Sounds circular.
No, it is when you
Oh,
have
science proving science isn't circular. So how do you know science is true?
how do I know science is true? Because it's demonstrable. I can
Oh, so
demonstrate
science
science.
that's circular. So science proves science.
I
It's
can.
circular. So you see how stupid
That-
atheism is?
you're cute. You're cute. You're
Yeah,
cute.
atheism's
Science
stupid.
is demonstrable. Do you know what that word is?
That means you're saying science proves science, which is circular. So that's kind of
No.
stupid.
Okay, I'm sorry. You needed to look up the word deconstruction. Maybe you need to look this word up too.
We just deconstructed atheism.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
You don't even know that you have two different Genesis stories. You don't even know that? Like,
It doesn't.
wow.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Why? Because
that
you
there's-
believe in you want to believe in a 2,000-year-old Bronze Age sex manual about where the goat herders didn't know where the stars went to sleep at night. I mean, are you serious? The people thought that the earth was flat. They thought that there was a firmament. This was not meant to be reality. And that's what's wrong with the world today is that people want to go and be like, this is the way that God wants things to be. And it's so silly. And
Yeah.
deconstruction is actually part of leaving Christianity and leaving the cult because nobody's ever born broken and we don't need salvation and nobody needs. We're not broken people. Do
Oh,
you
you
see
just-
that this is a big way to
Well-
control people and to control the masses? Like
Science
it's silly.
Yeah, you've left one cult for another.
I'm not in a cult. I'm sorry.
Well, okay, can you tell me the criticisms of science? What you know any of the criticisms of science?
There are lots of criticisms of
Yeah,
science.
can you tell me one? You know a lot about the Bible. Do you know any of the criticisms of science?
Oh, let's
You
see.
indoctrinated in just believing science like a cult.
Believe in science like a cult. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but when I can demonstrate something, I can
And then
prove it.
circular, and then
Can
your
you
circular-
demonstrate your God?
And then you got your circular reasoning again.
Can you demonstrate your God? Because I can demonstrate something right now if you needed me to. Like, listen, when I turn on my sink, the water will run. Science, demonstrable. Now
but that
prove
can-
your God.
Okay, so what you did just there was a type of inductive reasoning where you predicted that in the future when you flip the switch on your sink that the water will come out, right? But did you observe the future or did you just think it's going to happen on blind?
Because of multiple experiments of doing that and it actually working for me.
That's circular reasoning.
No, that's called demonstration and that's
You're
called
saying-
science.
You're saying because past because past futures resembled past, that therefore the future will resemble the past. So that's a type of circular
No,
reasoning.
you're making it circular. What I'm saying is that if you do
You're not
A,
in your
and then
head.
tomorrow you do the same thing that gives you A, and then the following day you do the
Lady,
same thing and it gives you
lady,
A, then
lady,
I bet
relax.
on Thursday you might get A.
Lady. So there's an order in the world for you to be able to turn your faucet on and water come out. There has to be this order in the world. Science can't explain that order in the world. Only God's revelation can explain that order. So you turning on the sink just proved God.
It did not prove God.
Then how do you
That
explain
is
the order?
silly.
Well, then how do you explain the order in the world that's necessary for you to turn that faucet on? What's ordering the world that's not God?
There's nothing in this world that happens or that ever did happen to require a
What
God.
what
Like
puts the
I
what's
like
okay? Then what is the order? What causes the order in the world that's necessary for you to turn on the sink? What causes that order that's not God? Go.
the order, I would say that we need to have a people who can get water out of the ground and then be able to hook that up into my house. Like, is that
So
the
you
kind of
don't
order
know,
that you're
right?
looking for?
So you
Like
see
how
why
man would
you
go in
see
and
why
get that?
you see why you
Yeah,
need God. You see how your
no.
system doesn't make sense. Oh. Well, I'm glad you're. You can laugh nervously about how irrational you are, but
I'm
that kind
not
of stuff.
laughing nervously and I'm not irrational. I will
Okay,
continue to
well,
talk
but
as long as you like.
you're believing something based on blind faith. You have no evidence to think that when you turn the faucet, the water's going to come out. You have no evidence to think
I'm
that's true.
I I'm believing something on blind faith.
You're believing something on blind faith every time you like speak or do anything. Your position is so crazy. You have to be a Christian to be real. You're living a fantasy. Christianity's obviously true.
Oh, well, I
You're
don't
doing
believe
it.
that. And I would like for you to demonstrate something to make me believe that because I would think that that should be your goal.
Okay, well, on Judgment Day, tell Jesus that I didn't demonstrate he exists, and then he'll demonstrate his existence when he sends you to the lake of fire. Bye bye. Wait, this guy was already up here. I don't want to talk to that guy again. That guy was goofy. Okay, the sooner objection, we're talking about time. So Augustine views run into a problem when he's trying to answer the second question. Does God change when he creates? Augustine claims that God does not change when God creates. This is quite puzzling, and the classical theistic tradition has spent a great deal of attention trying to solve a series of problems that arise from a timeless God creating a temporal universe. In what follows, I shall briefly note three problems. First problem, it would seem that in the act of creation, God goes from not creating to creating. That would appear to be a change in God. Call this the problem of creational change. It can be formulated as follows. If God begins to create the universe, then God changes. God begins to create the universe, therefore God changes. First premise seems fairly plausible by itself, so the control premise is premise 2, God begins to create the universe. It would seem fairly plausible for a theist to endorse this premise, since theists like Augustine typically claim that the universe is not co-eternal with God because the universe began to exist. However, premise 2 is the premise that Augustinians reject. Augustinians claim that God does not change because God is eternally creating, in the sense that God never begins to create. Whatever a timeless God does, he does so timelessly. From all eternity, God is creating. This might seem to avoid the problem of creational change, but it gives rise to a new problem. Second problem, If God is eternally creating, then it seems that creation should be co-eternal with God. Surely if God is eternally causing something to exist, then that thing will eternally exist as well. Well, isn't he eternally causing himself to exist? Call this the problem of eternal creation. It can be formulated in several ways, but I will offer a formulation that focuses on causation because it brings out parallel reasoning in several areas of Christian theology. Premise 1, if God is eternally causing X to exist, then X exists eternally. Premise 2, God is eternally causing X to exist. Conclusion, therefore X eternally exists. The first premise seems to be endorsed in several places within Christian theology, in particular in the doctrine of the Trinity. The Nicene Creed states that God the Father causes God the Son to exist. To be sure, the Nicene Creed claims that the Son is begotten, not made or created. However, terms like begotten and made are both causal. As Alasdair Haron explains, the term begotten in the Creed is intended to denote that which has cause or source outside itself. This causal source could be something, or in the case of the Trinity, someone. This need not involve the begotten thing coming into existence according to the pro-Nicene theologians. The term created or made, however, is intended to denote that thing which came into being. The creedal teaching affirms that the Son is caused to exist by the Father, but in such a way that the Son never came into being, whereas the Father alone is unbegotten, uncaused, and is the source and cause of the Trinity. In this light of this Trinitarian teaching, it seems like a Christian must endorse premise 1. The Trinitarian teaching affirms that the Son eternally exists because the Father is eternally causing the Son to exist. It is worth noting that Augustine does not affirm that the Father eternally causes the Son to exist, and thus the Son eternally exists. This can be formulated as follows. If the Father is eternally causing the Son to exist, then the Son eternally exists. The Father is eternally causing the Son to exist, therefore the Son eternally exists. It seems plausible that this same reasoning applies to whatever one places in for X. Consider how the problem of eternal creation can be reformulated when X is filled in with the universe. If God is eternally causing the universe to exist, then the universe eternally exists. The Augustinian wants to deny premise 3 that the universe eternally exists because she claims that the universe began to exist and that whatever has a beginning cannot be co-eternal with God who lacks beginning. Yet it is difficult to see how the Augustinian can avoid the conclusion of premise 3 given her answer to the problem of creational change. Recall that Augustinian says that God is eternally causing the universe to exist in order to avoid the problem of creational change. In order to avoid the problem of eternal creation, Augustinians cannot reject P2. If she did make this rejection, she would lose her answer to the problem of creational change. Traditionally, the Augustinian opts for a different strategy by rejecting P1. The Augustinian denies that the same reasoning applies in the case of the universe because the universe does not eternally exist. The claim is that God eternally causes the universe to come to exist when it does. Though God is eternally creating, the universe is somehow not eternal. This might strike one as rather ad hoc or counterintuitive. In response to this kind of Augustinian strategy, various thinkers through the ages say that they have lost their intuitive grasp on what eternally creating means in the Augustinian case. In contrast, the pagan philosopher Proclus has God eternally causing the universe to exist, which entails that God is co-eternal with the universe. That seems to be a more intuitive understanding of eternally creating than the Augustinian position. Hence, it is far from clear that the Augustinian has successfully avoided the problem of eternal creation. Moreover, it is not clear that Proclus's notion of eternally creating is really coherent either. The early 20th century theologian Louis Richard Farnell calls this move into question, reflecting on the Augustinian problem. Farnell writes, Modern speculation has thought to escape these perplexities by insisting on the concept of a timeless God and on the view of creation as a timeless essential activity of the divine nature, so that God cannot be understood or imagined without the world, and the world or some world must be regarded as co-eternal with God. But no ancient or recent writer has succeeded in showing how the idea of creation is compatible with the idea of timelessness. To maintain is not to create. One may timelessly maintain a static world, one cannot timelessly create. For to create is necessarily to make something new, something which, at least in that shape, did not exist before. And new and before are time determinations. Interesting. What everyone thinks of Proclus's understanding of eternally creating, it is not going to be of use to the Augustinian who wishes to deny that God and the universe are co-eternal. The Augustinian will have to bite the bullet and assert a rather ad hoc and counterintuitive notion of eternally creating. Of course, biting this bullet does not get the Augustinian out of the woods. There is still a third problem to consider. Third problem. It would seem that even if God is eternally creating, God would still undergo a change once creation comes into existence. This is because God exists alone, and then God exists in a causal relation to a universe that did not have prior existence. Call this the revenge of creational change. The problem can be formulated as follows. Premise 1. If God begins to be causally related to the universe, then God changes. Premise 2. God begins to be causally related to the universe. Conclusion, therefore, God changes. Premise 1 seems plausible, given the Augustinian claim that there is a state of affairs where God exists without the universe, and a state of affairs where God exists with the universe. Further plausibility is gained when one recalls that the Augustinian says that the universe is not co-eternal with God because the universe began to exist. In order to reject P2 and similar premises, Augustinians make a surprisingly strong claim. Augustinians deny that God is really related to the universe. To say that God is not really related to creation is a complicated matter. The short version is this. A real relation involves two or more subjects having accidental properties and virtue of being related to each other. The Augustinian says that God does not stand in any real relations to things external to himself that would entail having any accidental properties or any extrinsic or relational properties. For example, Augustine claims that God does not acquire the accidental property of being creator once the universe begins to exist because God is not really related to the universe. In fact, the Augustinian says that God does not even have this or any accidental properties at all. This strategy for avoiding the revenge of creational change runs into several difficulties. To start, it is a deeply ad hoc move on Augustine's part. In fact, I am not aware of any independent motivation for the no real relations doctrine. Its sole purpose seems to be to protect the classical doctrines of divine timelessness, immutability, and simplicity from objections. Apart from being ad hoc, it is counterintuitive for a Christian theist to say that the omnipresent God, who causally sustains the universe in existence, is not really related to the universe. Contemporary proponents of divine timelessness, like Catherine Rogers and T.J. Mawson, reject the no real relations doctrine because it is so counterintuitive. Further, it is worth noting that this Augustinian move runs counter to a fairly intuitive causal principle. The causal principle can be stated like this. There can be no cases in which one thing causes a change in a second thing without the first thing itself undergoing a change. Graham Oppy argues that this causal principle is intuitively obvious and can be defended by empirical generalization. Call this the Oppy causal principle. The Augustinian claim that an immutable and timeless God causes a change without God changing violates the Oppy causal principle. All right, we got someone in the box. Welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Morning. Are you an adult?
Yes,
Yeah.
you want to deconstruct atheism? Go ahead, break it down.
So atheism would not affirm the creator-creature distinction. And the problem with that is you're separating your mind from the objects of knowledge at your starting point in your system or your model of reality. So like you when you have like Greg Bonson, he says if you have a egocentric starting point, when you start with your own mind and then you have to work out from your mind to like the world and to other minds, it's like impossible. You can never connect your mind to other minds. That you need to accept the creator creature distinction and your as a starting assumption, or you'll just be reduced to an absurdity where you wouldn't be able to know the world or understand your experience.
And you're stating that by assuming there's a God, there's a greater chance of understanding your experience.
No, I'm saying that like, yeah, the God's revelation is necessary to understand our experience, because like our human reasoning and like our sense data or observations, it's like not enough to know the world and to like make science possible or something.
So we need God's revelation? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. It's
And
necessary.
we need God's revelation to understand all aspects of the universe?
To understand anything we experience.
So every single so sorry about that. Everything we experience, we can't truly understand unless God tells us about it.
Yeah, unless we have knowledge that comes directly from God, like we couldn't know what reality is, for example. Like have you seen the movie The Matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Neo's in the Matrix, and Neo has science. They have science in the Matrix, and they have philosophy in the Matrix, but they can't use science. Science won't tell Neo that he's in the Matrix, because the Matrix world appears from like our perspective would be the same as the world we're in. We couldn't tell the difference with science or something. So the only way to know what reality is, if there's something like a God that knows everything and then like tells us what reality is. And that's what we have in Christianity. We have God who reveals himself to us through history and then goes, hey, look, I made the world. So we know the world's like a physical, real thing. He goes, I made you. And he like connects us so that we can like know the world basically. And then if you deny that revelation, then you couldn't really speak intelligibly about the world, because you wouldn't even know what reality is. You could be in the Matrix. Like when Neo says, look, there's an apple on the table, he thinks that's a physical apple, but it's not. It's like a computer code or something. And that's the situation you would be in. When you talk about the world, you wouldn't know are you in a dream? Is it like physical? You'd have no idea. You couldn't tell the difference without God.
Okay. So you said we can't know our experience without God communicating it to us, correct? Wait, just yes or no, because I have another question and I just want to make sure that I'm making the right assumptions. So we can't know unless God communicates it to us, correct?
Yeah,
Is that what you were saying? Okay.
certain knowledge.
And God communicates through history. Is that what you're saying? Through history. If we observe history, we're communicated to by God. Yes?
I know. I said he reveals himself, so he makes himself known throughout history, and he
makes himself known throughout here. Oh, so he makes himself known to different people over the course of history?
to everyone through. He makes himself known through like his prophets. That he's also known just when you look at the world, it reveals God. So
Okay. What about the world is revealing uh, uh, is revealing God.
So like when we look at the world, we see like order in the world, and it's going to be like the case that either God's mind orders the world or like the human mind orders the world.
Is God an ordered entity?
An ordered entity. I
Yes.
don't know.
Is God organized?
I mean, yeah, because
Who created God?
no one created. He's uncreated.
So the order in this world is proof that a God exists, but the order in God isn't proof that God was created.
Well, yeah, because it's either going to be the case that like God's mind orders the world, or there is no order in the world, and like
Does God have order in his mind?
yeah,
Okay. Are you saying, let me be clear, are you saying that the order in the world is proof that God exists, correct?
yeah,
So you're saying order is proof of a God, yes?
uh-huh.
And okay, good. So if order is proof that there is a creator, who created God since God himself has order?
You asked this question, and I told you God's uncreated.
So order is not proof of a God?
The order in the world that we experience is the proof, the evidence of God.
Only this world, only when this world has order, that's proof of a God.
The order in this world is proof of a God, yeah.
Okay, so it only applies to this world, not to God.
I don't know. Dude, I don't know. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. That's what you said that order. I asked because I'm trying to find proof that there's God. We're deconstructing my atheism.
Doesn't sound
I'm
like
trying to wait, let me finish my statement. I'm trying to find proof that there is a God. I'm asking for steps on how to see him. You said order is the proof, and I would like to know, because if order is proof that we have a God, if God himself has order, then he himself was created.
that doesn't follow.
Why doesn't order is proof? Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, here, we'll do it like this. There's a crime scene, right? Somebody has been pew-pewed, right? We see fingerprints on the gun. Somebody did that. I'm sorry, on the pew-pew. We see handprints. We know somebody did this with their bare hands. There's for sure, it's very certain that the person with pew-pew powder on their hand did, fired that gun, right?
Yeah.
Because because the evidence, right? I don't have no pew pew powder on my hands, but Jeff over here has pew pew powder on his hands. Then that's evidence, right? The pew pew powder is the evidence of the person having done the crime, correct?
Uh-huh.
And we can use this in any scenario. If there's any scenario, any few, you switch out people and give the same exact story, only the person with a pew pew powder on their hand committed the crime. So the powder itself is the proof. I asked you, what is proof of God? I asked you, you said God speaks to us through the people he speaks to through history. And you said the order in the universe is also God revealing himself to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's this order in our lives. Okay, so who's revealing themselves to God when God has order in his mind?
Who's revealing themselves to God?
God is revealing himself to us by showing us order. Who's revealing themselves to God? Because God had to have been created if he too is full of order.
No, I'm saying God's like the source of order. So take the example of your evidence, right? Imagine you lived in a world where the pew pew powder was just randomly like appearing and disappearing on people's hands. Okay. In that world, you couldn't like determine that there was any evidence. There would be no evidence to prove that someone, was guilty of the crime, because the pew pew powder is just randomly appearing and disappearing on people's hands. There's no order in that world, so there's no evidence in that world.
Okay.
You couldn't prove
Do you
anything in
read the
that world.
Bible?
So in the atheist world, without God
wait.
ordering the world, you couldn't
Do
prove
you read the
anyone was guilty of a crime. And we don't live
Do
in
you
that
read
world. We live in the world of order, so therefore Christianity is true.
Do you read the Bible?
Sometimes.
Do you believe that God did the whole thing in Babylon?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The Tower of Babel. Do you believe God did that? Knocked that tower down and created disorder in that community?
Yeah.
So is that disorder also proof of God, or just only when he does the order?
Well, I'm not arguing disorder is proof of God, right? So there's disorder in the world and there's order in the world, right?
What are you arguing? What is the value of
For
order?
there to even be disorder, there has to. If there was no order, what would it mean to be disorder?
I want to know, what value does order have for you? Because you're saying this is God
I'm saying
revealing himself.
we all experience order in the world, and so then if you just ask the question like, how would you explain the order that we experience on like a godless model of reality, and there would be no explanation for it, right?
Yeah.
So
You know the Bible isn't written in order.
since the Bible can explain the order that we experience, that means the Bible explains our experience. That's the story that explains our experience. So that story is necessary to understand our experience.
Well, it wasn't written in order.
Mhm. But there's no order in your model of reality because if you deny the
Well,
Bible.
you're stating that order is God's model of reality, and yet God has a book representing him that in itself is not ordered.
But there is no. How can you talk about order if you deny that which orders the world? What are you even talking about?
What orders the world?
God, and you're denying God. So then, what order are you talking about? Because you live in the fantasy world, right? You don't live in the real.
What is my fantasy?
Atheist.
What is my fantasy?
You have an atheist fantasy.
What fantasy does atheists have? Can you be more descriptive?
Yeah.
What am I fantasizing about?
So you're talking to me like your words have meaning.
What? No. Is it my fantasy to have meaning in my words?
Yeah.
Or do you understand what I'm communicating?
But if atheism is true, your words wouldn't have any meaning. So
if it's true, I'm not asking if it's true. I'm asking what my fantasy is, and you're asking me something. You're telling me something. Could you answer my question? What is my fantasy as an atheist?
That like you can talk to me in a meaningful way. That's an atheist fantasy.
And the words I'm not saying have no value. The words I'm saying have no value. Are you understanding? Anybody in the comment section understanding my words?
You wouldn't be able to speak in the atheist world because there'd be no.
We would not be able to. So language. How were we able to get a Bible together if we didn't have words prior to God?
Because we live in God's world. God exists. You couldn't make sense of the world if there was no God.
So language did exist prior to people believing in God.
It's not about whether people believe in God or not. It's the fact that God's actual. So because God's actual.
You said if I did it, you said I wouldn't have language. You said atheists would not have language.
You can talk to me because you live in God's world. Whether you disbelieve in God, but that doesn't mean God. Just because you don't believe in him doesn't mean he's not real, right?
Okay, and I'm looking for proof that this is God's world, and we were on that. We were focused on that. I was trying to understand how order is God communicating, revealing himself to us. And now we're way over here with you telling me I have a fantasy. And when I asked you about my fantasy, you can't explain it. You're saying my fantasy is that I have meaningful words. But anytime I give you something meaningful to help me out with, you go discuss something else. So you won't meet me in meaningful places, and you won't and you won't stick to helping me see order. I'm trying to deconstruct as an atheist. And the only thing you're telling me is that I have a fantasy, but you're not giving me anything else. God revealed himself in history to whom? Do you know God says, he literally says in his Bible that he sends lying prophets? So which one of his prophets were telling the truth about him?
The ones that did miracles.
The ones that did miracle. Okay, so the miracle can't be a lie on God's behalf.
Well, the Christian God can't lie. He's always truth
The
revealed.
Christian God, literally, do I need to show you the verse in the Bible where the Christian God states that he deliberately sends prophets who lie on purpose?
No, he uses evil to destroy evil. So if you're a liar, he'll send. So because you're a liar, for
He
example,
uses
God has sent liars to deceive you, and that's why you don't believe in Christianity. Because
so
God's
evil
like,
is
oh, this person wants to be a liar. I'll let them believe lies.
so evil is a tool of God.
Humans create evil, and God uses evil
I
to.
didn't ask who created it. And humans did not create evil. It says right there in the Bible that God also created evil. My
Okay.
question is evil a tool of God?
So the problem here is you don't like. I think you're angry at God, and so you're just being unreasonable. Okay. So I think we're just gonna move
Oh,
on.
I'm getting clarification. You said sometimes God uses evil to destroy evil. And if you're using something to achieve something, it's a tool.
Yeah, it doesn't
So if
matter. It
God
doesn't
uses
matter.
evil to destroy evil, is evil one of God's tools?
I mean, it just sounds like you have daddy issues. So like you're just not being reasonable.
Yes, I have daddy issues. So explain to me if evil is one of God's tools. I don't love my daddy. Please explain to me
Okay.
why, if evil is one of God's tools.
You have to forgive your father, and then maybe.
Okay, I forgive my daddy. I love him now. I no longer have issues. Can you explain to me if evil is one of God's tools?
Ridiculous. Oh, I don't know. It's hard for these people to deconstruct. They don't want to know the truth. She ate me up. Yeah. Yeah, she did. No, God didn't create evil. He uses evil to destroy evil, though. That's what Paul says. What does he say? Oh, crap. Um, the concept of God using evil to destroy evil is a theological idea found in the Bible, where God sometimes allows or even utilizes wicked individuals or forces to punish other evil actions, essentially using one form of evil to counteract another, often as a tool for justice or to bring about a greater good. A prominent example is in the story of God using the Babylonians to punish the Israelites for their disobedience, even though the Babylonians themselves were considered evil. So there you go. But what was the specific? Doesn't Paul have a? Um, is it Romans? Well, I thought there was a specific verse. I might not remember it. My memory's not very good. God uses evil to destroy evil. Can God use wicked men for good? Acts 2:23, God uses wicked men to carry out his plan. To say that God uses wicked men, people, to carry out his plan does not mean that I think God approves of their wickedness or is favorable to it. Every person will be judged for their deeds, 2 Corinthians 5:10. Those without Christ will be eternally separated from God and give an account for deed done in the body, or give an account for deeds done in the body. However, that's not to say God can't use the wicked deeds of wicked men to accomplish his perfect and holy will and purposes. Acts 1:15-19 and 2:23 illustrate clearly that God used evil acts by evil people to accomplish his plan of sending Jesus to die for the sins of those who would trust Christ as Lord and Savior. Another helpful example is that of Joseph in Genesis. In Genesis 45, Joseph reveals himself to his brothers who sold him into slavery and tells them that it was God's plan that he be sold into slavery by his brothers in order to save them from more severe famine. His brothers meant to do evil to Joseph, but Joseph saw that God used it for good by making Joseph the second in command in all of Egypt to preserve the family of Jacob, which became the nation of Israel. Another story that illustrates God using evil to accomplish his will is the story of Judah and Tamar. Judah was son of Jacob, and it was from his lineage that Jesus was born. Matthew 1:1-17. Genesis 38 tells the story of how Judah's sons, who were the ancestors of Jesus, were conceived. The story is pretty twisted, but essentially, Judah slept with his daughter-in-law, who he thought was I can't say this word. It's a woman who has the oldest known job. You know what I'm saying? God used that mess to bless us and give us Jesus. Though God certainly disapproved of Judah's impulsive and reckless lifestyle, we all love Romans 8:28, and we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. But this verse simply cannot be true unless God, in his infinite power, can take the evil deeds of evil men to accomplish good things for his people, because God causes all things to work together for good. That God uses evil for good is a powerful reminder that there's nothing that is impossible for God. God is not the author of evil, but he is not limited in his capacity to use it. One last example. In 2 Corinthians 1:8-11, Paul tells the Corinthians that God nearly killed him and his travel companions when they were in Asia. Why would God let that happen to the Apostle Paul? Paul's answer: so that we would not trust in ourselves, but in God who raises the dead. God uses the evil deeds of evil people for our good and to teach us to trust him in every situation. That's what I mean when I say that God uses wicked people to carry out his plans. There you go. Isn't God great? God's amazing. God can even use the evil. God is so powerful, he can bend evil to ultimately serve. So it doesn't matter what happens, doesn't matter what you people do. ultimately God's will be done. Why is God okay with slavery? Leviticus 45. Where's the order in that? So if you actually look at the original King James Version of the Bible, the word slave isn't there. So that was just unfortunately added to the translation in like 1900, which it's just a bad translation. The word should be servant. There wasn't slavery in ancient Israel. In fact, I recently did research on this, and that the slaveholders in America, they would appeal to the curse of Ham. They wouldn't cite Leviticus laws.
Hello?
They understood the difference. Welcome. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I just got a couple questions for you. If like the reasons why I used to be a Christian, but like I had questions I couldn't go unanswered and stuff like that. But do you believe that like God knows everything?
Yeah.
Do you believe that he knew everything always?
Huh?
Like before he created everything, do you believe that he knew everything?
Yeah.
So you believe that he understood you and your personality, what would happen in your life before he created everything?
Yeah.
So by that, do you think that we have free will?
Yes.
How do you exactly?
Because like knowledge doesn't mean cause, right? So like you know the sun's gonna come up tomorrow, but do you cause the sun coming up?
But if he has the power to create you and he knows what you're going to do, I believe that is a cause.
Okay, but just because you believe something doesn't matter, right? So it's just a fact that knowledge and cause are different. So it just doesn't follow. It doesn't logically follow that because God knows your decision doesn't mean he causes your decision.
So if I were to, weird example, if I were to say lock you in a room with like a starving lion, would I be at fault for that? I have the knowledge that it's going to eat you, but I'm not causing it. Am I in the wrong still?
Well, you would be causing it because you're locking me in a room.
No, but the lion is still eating you. I'm not causing the eat, like the eating.
Yeah, but you're causing me to get eaten by a lion because you locked me in a room with a lion. So yeah, you're at fault.
Then by that same like logic, wouldn't God be the cause of everything by creating us?
Sir, do you know that the sun's going to come up tomorrow?
No, but okay, it's different though, because I'm not creating the sun. God created us.
It doesn't follow that you know the sun's going to come up, that you cause the sun to come up. You're making a mistake in modal logic.
No. Okay, but like, because he created us. Why it's different? He has a role in whether or not it comes up or not.
Okay, this is going over your head.
No,
you might just
I understand what you're trying to say. It just like this doesn't correlate.
Do you process information more slowly than other people?
Oh my god! I was watching these for a little bit. Are you trolling? Like, I'm being so free right now.
Yeah, you're very. You're a very unique thinker.
Okay, so no. So, do you think that? Well, by that means, how would God have created order if he just has a knowledge of order?
God causes things, and
He causes things.
Order, yeah. But he created humans as secondary causes. So he created us in his image we have the ability to cause things. Like humans created cars. God didn't create a car, did he?
So then why would you attribute anything that happens in your life to God?
Because God is necessary. God sustains existence.
Then wouldn't that mean he also sustains what happens in existence?
He sustains it. He doesn't necessarily cause it.
I think that kind of means he causes it. If he has the ability to stop it, he's kind of causing it.
No, he created humans as secondary causes, so he gave us the ability to cause things as humans. So we can make choices and we can change the future based on our choices.
So do you think that the God, before he created the universe, he would know what our choices are?
Yes, and it doesn't fall for the 10th time, slow boy. It doesn't follow that God knows your choice, that he causes your choice. It just doesn't logically
No, but
follow.
if he does he if he knows it, then like, okay,
Dude,
do you think
I'm
he
just
knows our
gonna move on
choices?
because this
Do you
is
think
like
that
you are too dense. You're too
you
obtuse.
you
You're
can't
not
be
getting
real,
it.
bro?
You're there's like a gap between your ears here. Knowledge does not entail cause. God can know your choice. It doesn't follow that he causes your choice. Okay.
Okay, no, look, okay, let's go from there, right? He doesn't cause it, but he knows our choices,
End of
correct?
discussion.
He knows our choices.
End of discussion. Yeah, he knows your choice. He doesn't cause your choice. End of discussion.
Okay, so but from there, do you
Bit.
think that it's morally correct of him? Do you think he's a good person for creating me, knowing that I'm going to hell?
I mean,
He's
you
not
don't have.
causing me to go
I
to
mean,
hell, but he
you
knows I
want to
will.
go to hell. It's not like he's not making you go to hell. You're choosing to go to hell.
But no, but he knows I will. He's not causing me to, but he knows I will by your like
Wow.
logic.
So, do you have a child?
No.
Okay. Well, like your parents had a child,
Yeah.
right? And they knew like that you would suffer, and they knew that you would be a liar, and they knew like you're going to hell and stuff. So like are your parents bad for creating you?
I mean, if they knew that creating me would send me to hell, I think they're terrible. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I think that anyone who can create something to be tortured eternally is awful.
But that's your choice. You don't have to go to hell. You could just like.
Well, I mean, that's me specific, but some people will go to hell and they never had a choice.
I mean, everyone has a choice.
No.
Yes.
There are kids in Palestine right now that are, they never heard about the Bible, but they're still getting unalived every day.
So what?
That's insane, by the way. But no, but God, before he created the whole entire earth, before he created the universe, he knew about this kid who would be exploded the day after he was born and still chose to create him.
Okay, so there's no God, and then the kid just evolved to explode at 2 years old. So is that better somehow if he evolved?
Well, no, this is a critique about Christianity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how is atheism any better when so the kid evolved? There's no God, and the kid just evolved randomly to explode at 2 years old. Is that
okay? Well, no. Look, let's go back to
better?
Christianity, bro. Let's go back to Christianity.
Okay.
So, like, what do you think about that, though? Like, why is that okay?
Well, I think I'm not a megalomaniac, and so I don't like question God's design of the universe. Because I figure I just assume God knows more than me. I don't know. That's silly though, right?
But like,
Probably think you're smarter than God.
No, I mean, well, I don't think I need to be smarter just to see what he says and what happens. Because by God, you need to be baptized, filled with the Holy Ghost, all that to go to heaven. And this child will never have the opportunity, and God knew that before he made the child. So I think he's responsible for that. You may not, but no matter what, he's not a good person for that.
Okay, well, maybe you can send God to hell then. You can tell him that on Judgment Day. That's a good idea. Tell God what a bad person he is on Judgment Day, and then you can send God to hell.
If I'm there, I will let him know for sure. But,
for sure.
But do you really like? Are you okay with this contradiction?
Well, why would it be wrong to contradict? Like, you're an atheist. There's no reason to be logical.
No, let's go back to Christianity, bro, because you believe logic exists. So
I believe
with your logic, why could he be contradictory?
Well, I don't think he does contradict. I think you're just an irrational person.
But why is that? Okay, well, do you think that's not a contradiction? You think that he's perfect morally?
Well, if there's no God, contradictions don't matter. So who cares?
No, look, imagine there's a God right now. That's what we're doing. It's internal critique.
Bye-bye.
What?
It's like so dense. I should have went with Emma. Welcome.
Oh, that was quick. You kicked that guy pretty quick. I was wondering where he was going with that.
Yeah, he's just like really a frustrating person.
Let me ask you a question real quick. If I'm walking by a creek and there's a kid drowning in a creek and I have the ability to save him at no cost of myself, do I have a moral obligation to save that kid?
If you're a Christian, yeah.
So
If you're an atheist.
the obligation because I have the ability to save him?
If you're an atheist, no, then you can just do
I'm just
it.
like, is the obligation because I'm able to save him?
Well, the obligation is because Jesus said you should love other people. So the loving thing to do, because Jesus said, if there's no Jesus, then just let him drown, I guess.
So
But,
every time God has witnessed a kid drowning in a creek, does he have the ability to save them?
I suppose so.
Why? So how can we have a moral obligation, but God doesn't? It doesn't make any sense.
Because God, he doesn't have moral obligations.
I thought our morality is derived from God, right?
Yeah, God's the standard, right?
And so God is the standard, and when we follow the standard, we save the kid in the creek, but the standard doesn't save the kid in the creek.
Well, God's actions aren't like good or evil, like in a moral sense.
I'm not talking about good. I'm talking about moral obligations. We're talking about what is the right thing
Moral
to do.
obligations come from God.
Okay, so you're telling me that we should save the kid in the creek, but God shouldn't.
Okay, so if God is the one that determines moral obligations, would it make sense to say that God morally obligates himself?
Yeah, absolutely. If God has certain things he's morally obligated to do. The same way you believe that God is all good. God cannot do evil in your worldview, right?
So, but you don't understand.
Can God do
because
evil in your worldview?
His actions aren't good or evil.
His actions aren't good or evil. God isn't all good. You don't believe in an all good God?
Not in a moral sense. He's good in a sense that's
You don't believe in an all good moral God?
So he's good, not in a moral sense. He's good in the sense that he has all the great making properties.
He's good as in he has all the great making properties.
Because to be moral, you have to have a moral authority. To be a moral subject, you have to have a moral authority. But God is the moral authority. So it doesn't make sense to talk about like God as if like he has some moral obligation.
Can God commit evil things?
No.
No. So God has a moral obligation to not do evil things.
God is the moral authority. He doesn't have any moral.
So he sets the goal we're supposed to follow, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if he's setting the goal, why am I saving the kid if he's not going to? How is he setting the goal if he lets kids drown in creeks all the time, but I'm supposed to reach down and save the kid?
Because why would rules for humans apply to God?
You just said he sets the goal. He sets the rules.
Yes.
He sets the goalpost. And when I ask you what is one thing we are supposed to do, you tell me, right? And then I'm like, well, how come God doesn't do that? And you're like, well, he is outside of morality. He doesn't do good or bad things.
I'll dumb it down for you. Okay,
dumb it down for me.
Let's dumb it down for you, brother. Let's dumb this down. Okay,
dumb it real far down. Dumb
as shit for you. Okay,
dumb as shit for me.
Dumb as shit. Yeah. Okay. So
here we go.
Think of a company, right? A company has a CEO at the top of the company, and then a company there's like lower level employees, right? Well, there's things that a CEO could do that lower level employees for them to do would be immoral, like maybe write a check in the company's name, right? The CEO has that authority, but lower level employees don't have that authority. You see what I'm saying?
So you're saying the CEO is allowed to do, and in this case, immoral things that other people aren't allowed to do.
Okay. Well, are you trying to be like dense on purpose? So like it's not immoral for the CEO to write a check in the name of the company because he has that authorization. That's his job. Within his job title, he can do that. It's not immoral. But it is immoral for a lower level employee to write a check in the name of the company because they don't have that in their job title. They're not authorized to do that. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. So there's a clear set of rules set out by the CEO as to what lower levels are allowed to do. Great. Now, where is this rule book that you're referencing that God has written out that we're supposed to follow of things he's allowed to do, but we are not allowed to do?
There's no rule book. I never talked about a rule book. I'm giving an analogy about how a CEO, a CEO is allowed to do things that lower level employees can't do. That's what I'm saying. Like God has certain authorizations that he can do things that we're not allowed to do. So it doesn't make sense to say,
So he is allowed to do evil things then, right?
okay, thank you for coming. I wish you well.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're
What a dense person. Good Lord. I dumb that down as shit. You see how when you dumb it down to shit level and their shit atheist brain can't even understand it? Welcome, guest.
Damn, you showed him.
Yeah, what a dumbass. Are you an adult?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, do you accept God as your creator?
No.
Okay, do you think you can rationally deny God?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the rationale for denying God?
What, do you have proof of God?
Well, of course, the transcendental argument would prove God, because I'm not going to just have a position on blind faith like a fucking atheist.
Okay, then dumb it down for me too. What is the transcendental argument?
Okay, step one is admitting you have a problem. Okay, so step one, admit you can't rationally deny God, right?
That's just circular logic.
That's not circular. Do you
How's
process
that proof
information
for God?
more slowly than others? Do you have struggle with processing information? It's not
So-
circular.
Okay, repeat it to me then.
You can't rationally deny God. That's step one, right?
Yes, you can.
Oh, what's the rationale for denying God?
Because there's no proof of him.
But that would be an
Easy.
appeal to, that would be a fallacy. That's not logical or rational to say that. So you can't rationally deny God. Agreed? Step one, you can't rationally deny God.
That is so circular though. You're just saying, okay, we can't deny it because you just can't. That's what I'm hearing.
Not even getting to my argument yet. I'm just trying to step one.
Okay, step one.
We're
All
not
right.
even being circular.
Let's dumb it down more then.
Holy crap. Okay, let's dumb it down. Okay, have you seen the movie The Matrix?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, so Neo is in the Matrix, and in the Matrix, he can do science and he can do philosophy. But science and philosophy can't tell Neo that he's in the Matrix. Like Neo thinks that the cat on the mat, it's an actual physical cat, but that it's not really a cat. It's just a computer program, right?
Yeah, but Neo was the chosen one. Like he was supposed to know all along that there was the Matrix.
I'm talking about before he takes the red pill, right?
Even before, he still kind of had the feeling that, he was like, something was wrong.
I'm just gonna kick you if you're gonna bicker with me like this is ridiculous. Obviously, Neo doesn't know he's in the Matrix before he meets Morpheus.
Sure.
Yeah, so when he talks about the world, he's saying that these things are like physical. There's a physical external world, but his whole life is a lie. He thinks he's in a physical world and he's not. So he's living a lie. It's a fantasy, right? Even though he has science and philosophy can't tell Neo he's in the Matrix. You're in the same situation as Neo. You have science and philosophy like Neo, but science can't tell you if you're in the Matrix or not. Well, this is a huge problem because truth corresponds to reality. But if you can't say you're in the Matrix or not, you don't know what reality is, do you?
Okay. And then this analogy, how does that pertain to the existence of God?
Right. So God, the Bible revelation is the red pill. So unless we get special knowledge from God, we can't know what reality is. So you couldn't speak in any meaningful way about reality. You couldn't understand the world without knowledge from God as the red pill. Only Christians can be realists.
So what I'm hearing is just that God exists because he just exists, and there's no point in trying to prove that he exists because he just exists.
What I'm saying is that
That's literally what you said.
In order to deny God or to deny the Bible, you have to be able to understand the world. However, without knowledge of God in the Bible, you couldn't understand the world. So in the process of denying the Bible, you have to assume the Bible's true in order to deny the Bible, which means it's impossible to deny the Bible.
So the Bible is perfect in every regard.
Yeah,
So why was it rewritten like 10 different times?
it wasn't. It's been consistent through centuries and location.
No, it was, first off, it was translated from Greek and things got lost in the translation.
No, they translated it correctly.
How do you know that?
Because we have thousands of manuscripts across a lot of time and space to compare. And we know the Bible is 98% accurate, and there's some like textual errors.
98? I thought you said it was 100%.
We're aware of all the errors. There's some errors in manuscripts, and we have so many manuscripts, we know all the errors.
Okay, but just one, like, then that's not true.
It's just
It's not
errors
perfect.
are just mistakes made when copying. That's it.
Just linguistic mistakes, or like can that extend to like actual historical,
Just
mistakes?
just human error in the process of copying. Not that they like everything, but we know the correct translation. The Bible's very accurate, very peer reviewed, very studied. There's no issues.
Then why is there Hebrewism?
I don't know. So are you gonna? So what? You got a choice now. Are you gonna take the blue pill, wake up tomorrow and live in atheist fantasy? Or are you gonna accept the Bible and live in the real
Why are
world?
you pivoting? Why do Hebrews claim that the Bible is not accurate and that the Messiah hasn't come yet?
Because they don't want Jesus to be true. Just the same
They
way.
have a Torah.
It's
They
an
also have a peer-reviewed and written source to back their claim.
It's an emotional position.
It's not emotional. It's
Can't
based on the Torah.
They can't rationally deny Jesus. Though. They have an emotional position.
How's the Bible a rational confirmation of Jesus, and how is the Torah a rational, unconfirmation of Jesus?
Well, are you conceding that atheism is a fantasy at least?
No. What? Why are you pivoting?
Just because I'm really bored by your line of argumentation.
I'm actually genuinely trying to learn by asking you these questions.
You're just quibbling about you're defending Judaism now, and you're not even a Jew. So
Why is that? Why does that even matter?
Because I'm interested in you defending what you believe, not you trying to argue for something you don't even believe. That's like an ad hoc rescue fallacy.
You can do that. That's perfectly valid.
Are you going to take the blue pill, wake up tomorrow in your atheist fantasy? Or are you going to take the red pill and accept the claims of the Bible and be a real?
All right, red pill me without telling me go read the Bible.
I just told you that you can only make sense of reality if you accept God's revelation. That there's no.
What is God's revelation?
God just giving information to us.
What is that information?
He tells you he created you, who you are, what the world is, and how you're related, so that you can know the world. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to know the world.
And where does he tell you that from?
In the Bible.
Again, how do you know that the things in the Bible aren't just made up?
Because
acclaimed fantasy, how you claim that atheism because atheism is not based on a book, but you're claiming everything off of a book.
We understand our world. We understand experience through a story or a narrative. And the only story or narrative that can explain what we experience is the story in the Bible. The atheist story cannot explain your experience. So you're going to be like a cognitive dissonance person and live a fantasy, or are you going to accept the truth of Christianity?
Enlighten me. Why should I accept the truth of Christianity?
I just told you.
Because God apparently has, the divine authority and everything that is in the Bible.
You
is
can objectively prove Christianity, where atheism, you can't prove anything.
Circular, because then you're saying that, because it's in the Bible and it says that it's in the Bible, it's true because it's in the Bible.
I'm saying God is the verification principle. And so that we know anything is true.
God.
Yeah, God is my objective standard for truth, right? So we know the Bible's true because we use the Bible to authenticate anything is true. So I'm arguing the Bible is my verification principle. And without accepting that, you wouldn't have a verification principle.
You're saying that the Bible is a verification for anything that's true. right?
Yes, the Bible. I'm saying God's my objective standard for truth. So, as a non-Christian, what would be your objective standard for truth?
Mathematics.
That's not an answer.
That
Do
is
you
an
want to answer the
actual answer.
question?
It's a
I'm gonna kick you unless you answer the question. So, what's your objective standard for truth as a
my object is
non-Christian?
the real perceived world that I live in that is provable through mathematics.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Right, you lost. You
Bye
lost. You lost. You lost.
bye. Get wrecked. Mathematics. Welcome.
Hello?
Welcome.
How we doing?
We're doing well talking to these emotional atheists.
Yeah, I don't understand how people can, no matter what you believe, I don't know how people can say there is no God. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, so
Because whatever created us is a God.
it has to be. There's no other way.
Yeah. We were created by something, and whatever it was a God.
Or did you just want to make a comment, or did you?
I just was saying I don't understand how people are trying to say that God's not real and all this stuff, and we exist, and we are the proof that He's real.
I agree. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I keep trying to. I feel like it's a lost cause trying to reason with these people because their position is not very reasonable. So.
Yeah.
But
You have a good day.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks. God bless.
Yeah.
Science is not God, man. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
So, deconstructing atheism.
Yes.
Explain.
Yeah, just doing like a critique to show that atheism is a total fantasy.
I mean, quite rich coming from people who believe in fairy tales.
Oh, I'm a realist. I don't believe in fairy tales. I'm a Christian.
Quite literally the definition of a fairy tale.
Quite. We now know Christianity is true because we can objectively prove the Bible, the claims of the Bible, with the transcendental argument for God.
No, there's no such thing as transcendentals.
There's no such thing as transcendentals. Well, then you're just denying that you can experience the world. Then. Transcendentals are that which is necessary to experience the world. So you can't deny the transcendentals.
Necessary. So you're a presuptionalist.
Yeah, I'm a presuppositionalist. My name's Presup Mars.
Yeah, a precept is such a garbage position to take.
Well, no, it's the correct way to argue for Christianity.
It's the incorrect way to accurately describe phenomenal events in the universe.
Sounds like you don't know what you're talking about. So, like, what would be your critique of the presuppositional apologetic?
Like you're going to take anything contradictory and conflate it to fit your presupposed notions.
So do you process information more slowly than most people?
I process them more accurately and more.
Oh, really? Well, maybe you could give me a substantive critique of the transcendental argument for God. Well, so what's the critique of the argument?
The critique of the argument is that there quite simply is no transcendental arguments. Everything is all material, even your experiences.
How is an argument material? Where does the argument exist? Where does this argument exist?
It is constructed. It is constructed in the mind, and the mind is material.
Mm. So, if everything's material, then is truth material?
The truth is absolutely material.
Okay. So how can one physical object be more true than another physical object?
There's no such thing as more truth. Truth is truth.
Okay. Well, I'm looking to talk to rational people, so I guess thanks for coming.
Yeah, I can continue to believe in an enslaver. Continue to believe in a murderer. Continue to believe and all the things to justify your very horrid views of the world. Goodbye.
See how emotional they are? I wish you well. See how it's all emotions? It's nothing rational, like I said. Just emotion talk. Welcome.
Yo, I got some more emotions for you, bro. Fuck you.
Exactly.
Fuck you. Go suck a dick, you stupid bitch.
Totally. This is atheism.
I didn't say I was atheist.
This is what they do.
I just said fuck you. I'm a Buddhist.
The Buddhist is an atheist.
No.
Yes.
No, I'm actually Hindu. Fuck you.
A Hindu is an atheist.
No, I'm actually pre-sub, but fuck you.
Okay, atheist.
See where you sit here on TikTok debating with fucking annoying ass philosophical concepts about a fucking murderous bitch ass God. Like, who cares, bro? Who cares? Literally think about your life, bro. Think about what you're sitting here talking to people about. Think about how you're trying to actually sound smart about a fucking slaver God.
Let the church hurt out, bro.
That's wild, bro. That's why you seriously think that that's like dope? Like what you're doing is sick?
Speak your truth, brother. Preach.
Well, I'm not preaching. I don't
preach, bro.
Preach?
Yeah,
I'm asking you a question.
What's your emotions?
I asked you a question.
Tell us your atheist testimony.
I asked you a question.
You asked me a question?
Do you not have an answer?
For what?
Well, I asked you if you think this is cool, or like if you think this is dope, like what you're doing. Do you think this is godly?
Hell yeah, I love God, and I love to talk to emotional people, like atheists.
Well, I mean, I don't think if you're out here for rage bait, then you clearly don't give a fuck about a God.
Where did God hurt you?
Huh?
How did God hurt you?
How did he hurt you, brother?
He didn't. I love God.
No, you don't. You don't listen to anything he's teaching.
According to you.
Well, I mean, rage bait is definitely against the Bible.
Rage bait? Who's rage baiting?
You literally just said I love talking to emotional people because you love to rage bait people. You're a fucking loser on the internet who has nothing to do with God. You've never believed in God. You don't have any religion. You just sit here fucking arguing bullshit philosophical concepts. Are you not being emotional right now? Emotional? Yeah, you're being emotional, are you not? Because I'm saying fuck you. Is everybody who says fuck you emotional to you? Well, I mean, is it completely beyond your belief or your concept of reality that people can dislike you without it being tied to like some super emotional reasoning? Like people can just think that you're like bullshit. You know that, right? I'm saying you don't have evidence for your position. I would say you're being emotional if you think everybody who like criticizes you is emotional. I think that's an emotional response. I'm saying it's emotional because you don't have evidence for your position. Your position's an emotional position. My position is fuck you. We're not using philosophy here to say fuck you. I'm not the one who needs like evidence to have a belief. Like, so what I'm saying, it shouldn't be controversial, but you want to bicker because you're emotional. No, I'm saying fuck you because of the way you talk. I wish you well. Welcome.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
Going well.
All right, so I don't think I'm emotional, but I am an atheist. So tell me why I'm wrong.
I'm saying it's emotional in the sense that you're ignoring the evidence and you believe what you want to be true. That's what I mean by emotional.
All right, so I'll bite. What am I ignoring?
Well, like, do you think you can rationally deny God?
Yes.
Okay, so what would the rationale be?
It's called science.
Okay, and how do you know science is true?
Well, science is based upon the idea of establishing a hypothesis and then proving or disproving it. So I tell you what, let me switch that question around. What's your scientific proof that God exists?
My scientific proof for God exists is that if you deny that we live in an environment of revelation where God reveals himself, then science...
What do you mean by reveals himself?
That God...
Just can I just kind of focus on that for a moment? You referred to God as him. How are you certain that it's a male?
Yeah, God revealed his pronouns, and I don't want to misgender God because that would send me to hell if I do that. Do you want to?
When did God reveal his gender?
In the Bible.
All right. So who wrote the Bible? And by the way, were we going Old Testament or New Testament?
The Bible is written by like the prophets, inspired by God.
All right, man. I just want to take your logic a step further. How do we know that that's true? Because I mean, I can write about anything and claim it's the word of God.
So right, like I was talking about with science. So like, unless we assume that we're in like an environment of revelation, then science would be impossible because human reason and our observations is not enough to make science possible. That we need knowledge from God to make science possible.
You know what? I don't disagree with that on a practical level, but you're making a big leap, though.
No, it's just a transcendental argument.
Explain to me what that means, because
so we understand the world through a story or a narrative, and the only story that can explain our experience, or like the necessary story to explain our experience, is the story in the Bible. So it's impossible. You would have to assume that story to even deny that story.
See, this is where you lose me, because it always comes back to, well, it's the word of God. It's in the Bible, and therefore it kind of shuts down any kind of conversation or debate, because if you're just going to go back to that, it's the word of God, period, end of discussion.
Well, yeah, like to debate, you need to have logic to debate, right? Could we debate? If we lived in a world without logic, could we debate?
That's actually an interesting question.
It's not it's a simple question. It's obviously no. Logic is necessary.
Well, it's not. Well, time out. It's not obviously no.
It is obviously no. Come on, man.
Whoa, time out. Who's being emotional here?
Whoa. You're being emotional.
How am I being emotional?
The obvious answer to the question is no. And to act as if that's not obvious is emotional.
I'm not acting anyway. I'm genuinely asking.
You are acting emotional.
Dude, this is what happens when you have absolutely... Yeah, so I'm being emotional. You're laughing like an idiot. So I'm being emotional. How old are you? I'm guessing like 7?
I'm 42.
42?
I'm 42.
Now that's funny. That made me laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
You want to admit that you can't rationally deny God?
Listen, man. Whatever makes you happy. If you have this, genuine faith, then I say, pun intended, God bless you.
You want to be honest and admit you can't rationally deny God? You want to be honest, or are you going to lie?
How am I lying? I didn't.
Can you
what did I
rationally
say
deny
that was a
God?
lie? I've been asking you questions, man.
Can you rationally deny God?
Yes, I can.
Okay, how?
Oh, dude, we're going back and forth with this, okay? I say it's science. You say it's not science. So it really doesn't get us anywhere.
So where in science do they rationally... Where's the scientific evidence for no God?
So, all right. So here's what... So in other words, here's what you're telling me to believe. You believe that God is all-knowing, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
All right. So and is God... Where is God? Is he in the sky? Is he all around us?
He's omnipresent.
Is he omnipresent? So he's got an eye on everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you said that you are a believer in the Bible as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming that includes the 10 Commandments.
No.
It doesn't include the 10 Commandments.
I don't have to follow the 10 Commandments. I'm a Christian. That's for the Jews.
All right. Are Jews atheists?
What?
Are Jews atheists?
No. So, can you rationally deny God?
Dude, I've been trying to talk and you keep interrupting with that ridiculous laugh because you really have no argument. You're just a clown.
I made an argument, but you're
now you could say I'm a clown who's on TikTok too. and you'd be right about
You're
that.
so
But honestly, I
mean.
had nothing better to do on this Sunday morning, so I figured I'd bite. And I thought we could have an actual rational conversation. But you're a clown.
I'm a clown. Well,
You are a clown.
what's your rationale for denying God? If you want to have a rational conversation, let's start with that. You don't have a rationale, do you? It's an emotional position, isn't it?
All right. So let's go back. So you don't believe the Ten Commandments are for the Jews?
Answer my
according to you.
question or I'm going to fucking kick you.
Kick me then, dude. You're a clown. Okay?
All right. I wish you well. What the hell's wrong with people, dude? Welcome.
Thanks. Probably want my age. I'm 43.
Right on.
I'm not Christian. However, I do believe in a creator. And now I feel kind of silly because I had a question for you, because you do seem you've posed the best argument for a God in general, and even Christianity to an extent. Now I forget my goddamn question. So I was listening to you two go on, and it just derailed me. Yeah. So yeah, sorry to even pop up.
No worries. Was it a question about the argument?
No, it was a little earlier on, and I was trying to keep it in my head, and it was just a question actually for you. And
oh, okay.
Oh yeah, actually, I remember it now. It just popped in my head. So with the atheists, okay, in your mind, if an atheist lives a life that you would say God wants you to live, except for the part where they just don't believe in a God or see a God, are they still, I guess, righteous and good in God's eyes, do you think? I would think I would think if there is a heaven, which I don't quite believe in a heaven as it's quantified and qualified by Christians, if there was a heaven, I would think that someone that was atheist who was absolutely good in their life without even fear of God, they would have a place in heaven.
I don't know. The way I look at it is like God is love. Love's the most important thing. So I mean, this is my opinion, because I mean, ultimately, I don't know what God decides, but
That's all I want is your opinion.
I mean, I think if someone lives a life of love, they love others, they love God, and I think then God would, if they don't maybe know the name Jesus, or they don't believe in Jesus, but they're very loving, I don't know. I think potentially God could save them, I guess.
I'm just thinking, like, an atheist is there in their mind, they're thinking logically, and you know, maybe they're mistaken, maybe they're not, but in their mind there is no God, but maybe their morality is the same, that God would want us to be like, is why I've often wondered that. And when I see people who are smart like yourself, and we're really not just, you know, gone to church a few times and read the Bible, and you thought a lot deeper about it, I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on it, I guess.
I don't know, but then again, I think a big sin is to think that we can exist with independence of God. So, like, I think we need to, like, humble ourselves and repent and admit we need God. I think that's, like, important. And so, like, the problem is, like, atheists don't really do that. But ultimately, like, I don't know.
That's a good answer. That's a really good answer.
I don't know, like, we're saved by the grace of God, and grace is an unmerited reward. So it's not like we can earn it by, like, acting moral. And I know atheists can act just as, like, they can, you know, help feed the poor, and they can do just as many good things in the world as a Christian can. But it's sort of like a different context, because it's like we're supposed to be doing things out of love. Like we have an interchange of being where we want to do this. And sometimes, like, an atheist can do the right thing because maybe they want to, like, gain some social status. Like, oh, look at me, I feed the poor, I'm better than you, or something like that.
I see what you're saying there too. I often, even in myself, like, I believe myself to be a good, loving person, and then I kind of go even deeper and, like, okay, so when I, like, for example, even telling you this, I feel guilty. Like I paid someone's car payment once. They were like just losing everything, and I paid their car payment for them. I did it, I would believe, out of the kindness of my heart, but I also did it because it made me feel good to do that. So it's really a selfish reason. I mean, it depends on how deep you want to go. And then really, only the atheist would know in their mind if they're truly just doing something out of love and being a kind human being, rather than just doing it for, looking good.
Yeah, so like you could think about like there's one type of kid, he's gonna like act be well behaved before Christmas because he wants to get Christmas presents, and then after Christmas he might start misbehaving, right? So he's only like behaving to get the goodies. And so for Jesus, that's not good enough. Like, and Jesus wants us to like actually change our heart so we want to do the right thing. We're not just doing it because like we want to get a reward or yeah. So that's kind of
so we don't have a lot of actual words from Jesus, but my the way I've perceived what we have learned from his message is that we all have, like what you just said in you, like the kid behaving so that he can get the presents. We all have that. We'll always have that. It's to strive to do things out of love, like you said.
Christianity is it's a way of living. It's a way of life. Of when Jesus changes, the relationship you have with Jesus changes who you are on the inside, and as a result, you bear good fruits because it changes. If you change on the inside, then it changes how you act. So
that's correct. Anyways, yeah, I appreciate you having me come up and answering my questions.
Yeah,
I hope you get lots of good discussions and some breakthroughs with some of these people.
Yeah,
love and peace, my friend.
Yeah, you too. God bless. Thanks. Yeah, unfortunately, most of the time when we talk to like the non-believers, it's like they're kind of like angry at God, so it's hard to like get a good discussion. God and football. Welcome, Space.
Are you going to tell me why your God is more true than mine now, or are you going to keep running?
Well, I don't really like debate against like other theists. So if you're like a theist, what are you, like Muslim?
Hindu.
Hindu? Oh, well, that's like a type of atheism because you're denying the creator-creature distinction.
I'm just saying Brahman is all things, basically the same as I'm using basically the tag argument, same as Hindu.
Yeah, tag doesn't work for Hindu. Like you can't just use tag to argue anything, any God. It's specifically for the Christian God. I don't know why people think this. You can't. They think they can just like put any God in the tag argument and it works. Doesn't work. You need revelation. You need the attributes of the Christian God. That's like central to tag. The whole idea is that we get our model of reality from the Bible. So is that it? Yeah, he left. Did you repent and become a Christian?
Sure, yeah. So without mentioning the Bible or Jesus, can you rationally persuade me to believe in God?
No, because you're not a rational person. I can't convince a flat earther the earth is a sphere.
Well, let's try. Why not?
There's patterns in the world, right?
Okay,
so it's either the case that the world has intention and design, or there's no intention to the world. It's just like accidental. And so the patterns only make sense if they're purposed that way. If there's like a mind that's purposing things to have connections, because we see and experience connections. To live in a world without purpose and just think that there's going to be connections in the world, it doesn't make sense. We wouldn't experience connections. So when we talk about the world, for our unifying descriptions of the world to be true and meaningful, there has to be intention behind the world, or else everything you say is like a fiction. It's not real. Because then the patterns wouldn't be real.
So you're saying that these patterns are an intention, i.e., derived from like a purpose to things, but I mean, a purpose you can argue is just a process. Like things don't really need to have purpose to have process.
So for anything that exists, it could have an infinite amount of properties, presumably.
But like does everything have a purpose? Even like, I don't know, just dropping a rock or
the universe. I'm saying the universe has a purpose. It either has a purpose
or not. The universe isn't akin to just like a rock just being dropped from a cliff.
Dude, I'm not talking about dropping a rock from a cliff. I'm talking about, was the universe created with purpose or not? There's either purpose behind creation or not. And if you say or not, then there would be nothing that purposes connections that we experience. So the connections we experience doesn't make sense now because there's no purpose behind that. Yet we act and speak like there is purpose behind those connections.
But that's because we give it purpose as humans had like.
Okay, so then that means everything you say is fake and there's no meaning to your words. That's the entailment of that.
That's not necessarily true because there's things that are natural and that really have no purpose, but they just happen.
So the patterns are either put there by God's mind or there no patterns, and that our minds are imposing patterns on reality that don't exist. So if you say our minds are imposing patterns that don't exist on reality, that means the patterns aren't real. And so when you talk and you reference the patterns, that means that's not real now. Now that there's no meaning. The words you're saying are fictions. For the words you say to have meaning and be truthful, there has to be like inherent meaning in the world. So when you talk about the world, there's meaning there. That requires purpose.
Yeah, there's meaning to you as a human talking about it right now, to have like a purpose to talk about it. It has a purpose to you.
If the human mind puts the order in the world, then the order isn't real. It's just imposed by our mind. It's a mental structure. It's not a physical structure. For the order to be real and meaningful, God has to order it. Otherwise,
do you believe in chaos theory?
Chaos theory has nothing to do with this.
You're saying that everything has a pattern or a purpose, but that's not entirely true.
Listen, lady, we experience patterns. That's undeniable. When you're talking to me, you're referencing unifying descriptions of reality. When you speak to me, those are either real or not. So if you're going to say there's no intention or design or purpose, then our unifying descriptions of the world are not real, which means when you talk, there's no meaning to anything you say.
Yeah, there is.
That's the entailment of stupid fucking atheism.
To you and me, there is a purpose, but in the grand scheme of the entire universe, like you and me talking, it's just you and me talking.
Do you think your words have meaning?
In the whole grand scheme of the entire universe, no, not really.
Okay, bye-bye.
Why?
Bye-bye. I mean, my words don't have meaning. I'm sitting here talking to you, but my words don't have meaning. You lost the debate, but they don't even realize it. Complete, utter trash. My words don't have meaning. Now listen to my words. Welcome. Wait, weren't you already up here?
Correct.
What the hell? Did you repent and become a Christian?
I repented. Please, God, forgive me of my sins that I am about to make, you fucking moron.
There we go. This is atheism. This is what they do. So rather than deal with my argument, they just want to call me a fucking moron. Okay. So you're not going to deal with the argument? You're just going to be emotional?
I'm gonna deal with the argument. Trust me.
Yeah. So what's your, do you have a rebuttal? How do you get an argument?
So like whether or not somebody is speaking does not entail meaning.
Uh-huh.
Just deal with it and cope, dude. No,
So you're saying your
there's no
words don't
meaning.
have meaning? Your words don't have meaning? Is that what you're saying?
For the applicable senses of usage between the members of the human species, they will have meaning, but in the grand scheme of things, they don't.
Bye-bye. These people, oh, my words don't have meaning, but let me talk to you. This is atheism. I mean, what kind of so delusional. Well, welcome.
What's up?
Yeah, I'm talking. These people are telling me that their words don't have meaning, and then they want to have a conversation with me. Can you believe
What?
that?
Okay, well, excuse me. What gives words meaning? Are words inherently meaningful because they exist, or are they meaningful because we as humans give them meaning?
No, God gives them meaning. If we give meanings to words, then they would not have meaning.
So language has always existed. Just there's never been a point where language has never existed.
The things that the language refers to always existed, or they didn't always exist. I don't know. What are you saying, dude?
Like I'm saying, like what gives words our meaning, right? Like what gives them meaning, right? You're saying God gives them meaning.
Yes, God.
But based on what? Like, what are you basing that off of?
Based on the fact that God provides the ultimate context to give anything meaning, and if you deny that, then you'd have to. What ultimate context would give meaning to anything?
Well. To me, there is no ultimate context.
Well,
like
okay,
the context is that we're just here.
Great. And so there's no meaning to anything you say. Great. So
Okay.
There's no reason to have a conversation because your words don't have any meaning. So there you go. You lost the debate.
Well, wait. How could I lose the debate if my words have no meaning?
You can't.
I could just easily say I won the debate.
You can't debate if words don't have meaning.
No. Okay. Yeah. Like only if we agree that they don't have meaning. They have meaning because we establish that they have meaning, but not because of any objective, not because of God. That's just a God of the gaps fallacy.
It's not a God of the gaps fallacy. A God of the gaps fallacy would be to say there's this observation in the world we can't explain, therefore God explains it, right?
But you're just saying hey, words exist and they have meaning, so therefore.
Jesus Christ, you can't even listen to me. Where do they grow these people?
Yeah.
Welcome.
So I want to ask you, I've been kind of on the fence spiritually for a while. I grew up as a Christian. What is your biggest argument for Christianity and why?
The transcendental argument for God, that humans understand our experience through a story or a narrative, and the story narrative in the Bible is the necessary story to understand or give meaning to anything that we experience.
I mean, my kind of thing, what's been drawing me is the order and the design of the cosmos, the free will argument. A lot of famous scholars who have brought up debates against Christianity were Christians themselves, Isaac Newton, and you had the guy who created the Big Bang Theory was a Christian. So, I mean, a lot of those big things have pulled me in, but I personally believe, because I've been trying to get back into Christianity, that Jesus is the one true God. And a lot of these atheists that come on here are trying to go the philosophical route and refuse to believe the facts of Christianity. And that's sad.
Yeah, they can't do philosophy without Christianity. So they're just like jerking each other's chains.
I think people refuse to believe that science and Christianity can coexist, and there's a lot of biblical proof of Christianity. It's not all just blind faith. If people really aren't open to it, people
science and atheism can't coexist, because
Exactly.
if atheism was true, science would be impossible. The only way we can do science is if we live in God's world where God reveals himself to us, because there's no metaphysics. We can't have metaphysics with Our human reasoning and our science can't get us to any metaphysical claims. Only God's revelation can.
I mean, my whole thing is I find it more probable than not that there wasn't an explosion that came from absolutely nothing, and we evolved from single-celled organisms, because I've never seen life come from non-life, and I've never seen something be created without a creator. And many scientists agree that the Earth was created, or excuse me, the universe was created 13.1 billion years ago.
Well, that's
And that argument is good enough. I mean, simply, if I'm not just going to walk into my new house and say, well, this was just here. No one had to create this. Nobody had to build the structure to this house. It's if it was created, it had to have had a creator. It didn't come into existence from out of nowhere. And someone just said, who created God? God exists out of time, space, and matter. And in the beginning, in the Bible, it says, in the beginning, God created the earth and the heavens. That's time, that's space, that's matter.
Yeah, but there's problems with what you're saying there. So, for one, if we say God exists outside of time, like that's not the God of the Bible, because the God of the Bible exists in time. And then there's to argue that God created the universe. Everything has a cause, so the universe needs a cause. Therefore, God is the cause. That's a fallacious argument. So, the way I argue is I do a transcendental argument for God, which is like a objective proof that the atheist can never respond to. So that's like the best evidence, the best proof for God is a transcendental argument for God. The other arguments are fallacious, although they're popular and convincing.
But God would have to exist outside of the boundaries, wouldn't he have to? So God wouldn't be affected by time, space, or matter? Or am I wrong on that?
The God of the Bible exists in time with us, like he communicates with us in time.
Okay. I mean, but is he not affected by it? So, like, I'm not. I guess I shouldn't have said.
We say that like time is part of God's nature. So by God existing, the universe is kind of gets incorporated into his time, something like that.
No, I mean, like, the biggest thing is a majority. The big thing with the majority of atheists is I love when they bring out the Big Bang Theory, acting like it wasn't created by a Christian. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but I mean, if you talk about directly going through with, I mean, when God said, let there be light, that essentially ties in with the Big Bang Theory, because they say it was a massive blip of heat and thermal energy that pulled things together. And I find it more probable than not that there was absolutely nothing that caused an explosion.
Well, I mean, I don't really worry about what science says, because the Bible is like the authority over science. So I don't really care what science says. We can prove the Bible's true. The Bible is a better source of information than any science could ever be. Science is kind of a joke. So
I mean, I agree to disagree there, because I do believe that there's a lot of scientific evidence that backs the Bible and brings in more evidence. I just believe that there's so much evidence that people refuse to believe, and it's just, I mean, a lot of people, I'm sure disagree with me, and that's fine. Like I said, I'm still learning, but I just want to come on here and sort of talk with you a little bit about your argument for the Bible and kind of like how I saw things. So I appreciate you letting me come on.
Yeah, man, right on. Thanks.
Yep.
God bless.
Bye.
Yeah, I just think the problem with I don't necessarily disagree that there's scientific. I think there is scientific evidence for God, but the problem is that people's background beliefs affect how they evaluate and interpret evidence. And so when we're talking to someone that rules out any supernatural explanation or cause, then no scientific evidence could show them any supernatural anything. So that's why we have to deal with the foundational beliefs of how we evaluate and interpret evidence. Yeah, there's no scientific evidence for God. if you are a naturalist, of course, but if you're a Christian, then there is scientific evidence for God. It depends on how you interpret evidence. So that's why we do the precept, because the precept deals with how we interpret evidence at a foundational point. What's the scientific evidence for God? I don't really get into that. I don't argue that, because you have to deal with the presuppositions before you can get. We have to talk about how we evaluate and interpret evidence before we get to talk about evidence. But I could just say that, like, you wouldn't be able to do science without God. Yeah, science is really limited in what it can tell us, but people are indoctrinated into science, so they don't question it, and they take it as the gospel truth, and then they try to figure out how to fit the biblical paradigm to make it consistent with the scientific paradigm, when it should be the other way around. The scientific claims have to comport to what the Bible claims, because the Bible is a better source of truth than science. People are indoctrinated to be religious as well. Sure, but the whole point of science is to question things, lol. Except for people never question science. They just assume. Like, I ask people that want to make scientific claims. I'm like, well, what can you name a criticism of science? And they can never name any, like, problem of induction, underdetermination of data, or the myth of the given, or something like that. Well, I can fault people that blindly believe in science and take it as the gospel truth. Yeah, I do fault people, because science is being used to control us. You know, they can see how they see how in the past religion was used to control us, and they don't see how science is doing the same thing now, except for it's like way worse. People forget. It's like they forget about, like, power and corruption or something. That applies to science too. It's not just the fact that power corrupts doesn't only apply to religious institutions. It also applies to scientific institutions. Yeah, but sure, a person can use anything to control others, but what is in reality right now being used to control people? It's science and technology. It's not religion, is it? Yeah, religion has been used. Religion's like a primitive form of propaganda, though. So I've studied propaganda. So because of science and technology, like, we have way more advanced in propaganda than religion. Like, religion doesn't matter anymore in terms of propaganda. No, there's a lot of scientific dogma that wouldn't be recreated, like Freud or Darwin, Charles Lyell, Deep Time. We live in a scientific dictatorship. Even if you don't believe in Christianity, is it that bad to put yourself in check to better yourself? Yeah, I don't know why they think they blame Christianity on like all the world's evils. It's really weird. Like, where are these, like, evil Christians? Like, what are they doing? They're like feeding the poor. How do you determine truth and if it can be used to manipulate? God determines truth. So we go outside of humanity. With the mind of God, not the mind of man, determines truth. So it's either going to be God's mind determines what's true, or the mind of man determines what's true. And if you say the mind of man determines what's true, that's going to be problematic, because, well, I could just say anything's true because it's just whatever I say is true, right? Where if we say God determines truth, then now we have like an objective standard that's not arbitrary to say something's true. God determines it's true, not just my mind. See, this is what Adam and Eve did in the garden. They wanted to determine what's true, what's good. They decide for themselves what's good and evil, decide for themselves what's true. That's God's job. And so it's my job as an apologist to explain to you, like, look, God determines truth. When you make yourself the arbiter of what's true and what's the good, you're basically making yourself God. So you're being a sinner by making yourself God. But then it's like, if you believe you're God and I'm sitting here trying to convince you that you're not God, well, who's going to want to listen to me, right? They'd rather just be God than humble themselves. Free the people, that's true. There's like social Darwinism, yes, that's bad. Darwinism and evolution can lead to like racist mentality and oppression. Same with IQ test scores. The Yazis in Germany, they would sterilize people who scored low on an IQ test. So science can be used to oppress people. Well, they're justified because they have a statistic. They used a scientific method, so then it's okay to persecute people, as long as the scientific method says it's okay. Only if you don't understand evolution. Well, religion is used to suppress people as well. No, not anymore. We're like, maybe like hundreds of years ago, dude, but like not anymore. You know, like scientific racism, like they would appeal to science to justify like, oh, well, we're more evolved than your race, so we're justified in like treating you like crap because of science. Does anyone take precepts seriously? No, they don't take it seriously. That's why they can't. That's why they can't defeat the argument. Maybe if they.
What's the logical reason for you being Christian?
The logical reason is a transcendental argument for God. That God's necessary for logic.
Sure, but what's the necessary reason in believing in Christianity?
The Christian God's necessary for logic. You wouldn't have logic without the Christian God.
Sure, but that's not getting to the point. Like I guess you kind of affirm a necessary being sure. That's besides the point. Why should we believe in Christianity and its doctrines?
I told you, because it's necessary for logic. You can't deny logic. So denying Christianity would be like denying logic.
This is not an actual reason. If you were a trained Christian apologist, you would make an actual argument, such as like the resurrection, such as miracles. Like this is going besides the point. Sure, you can affirm logically that there's a necessary being. Sure, we can go about that. But I'm going like because I'm not an atheist. But if you want, huh?
Are you a Muslim?
Regardless of the point, man.
Well, this bad faith
Agnostic.
not to tell me your position.
Agnostic.
You're agnostic?
Yes, bro.
Oh, well, you can't. You're actually an atheist because the Christian God is obvious, and you don't think God's obvious, right?
Okay, so how is the Christian God obvious? In which ways?
He reveals himself. To
who exactly?
His invisible qualities are unambiguously known. Where like the
unambiguous. You're using the most you're using the most ambiguous language when you talk about unambiguous. It's funny.
So he's obvious and plain, right? Because his invisible qualities, like the conceptual order we experience, the causal order, the natural order.
Okay, I'll make this article simple. Why should I believe in the Bible? Since the Bible is the foundation of Christianity. Go on.
You should believe in because it's objectively proven, right? If you
like give an example,
we
give an argument.
Humans understand the world through a narrative or a story, and the Bible story is necessary to explain our experience. So to deny the Bible would be like to deny logic or something.
I've never met a pseudo intellectual like you, honestly.
I'm not an intellectual. I'm a fool. I'm not even a pseudo intellectual. I'm not.
You're not even a pseudo intellectual. Literally, you're a fool.
I'm a fool.
Because listen, guys. All of the people in the comments. When I asked this guy, why should I believe in the Bible? He said because the Bible is objectively true.
Yeah, it's objectively proven that the transcendental argument for God.
Even he said or something, right? That's funny. What? Literally, what is the reason for you believing in the Bible? You know, when we look at the church fathers, right? Like Saint Irenaeus and Augustinus and Justin Martyr, right? When we look at their confessions, why did they believe in the Bible? It's because they believe in the witnesses who testified to their stories in the Bible, such as the resurrection. Even the Apostle Paul says Christianity is pointless unless you believe in the resurrection and those people who witness it. So you have to prove the Bible is true and why we should believe in it.
Yeah, I'm giving you a proof. I'm giving you a transcendental argument. So, like, you can't be skeptical of logic, right?
No, if I'm like, when I'm speaking to you right now, the words, the exact letters, they're following logics, and we're not even able to have a conversation without logic. So go on.
Yeah, it's impossible to be skeptical of logic, and so like I'm saying, God.
I don't doubt that though.
Okay, so I'm saying God causes logic to be true. So if you deny God, what would cause logic to be true? That's not God.
God doesn't cause logic to be true. I don't even think you make sense, but I don't even want to argue against that. I don't even want to argue against that because that's because that's your argument.
What causes logic to be true? That's not God.
Listen, like, what does the word logos mean? What does the word logos mean?
It means word. So
yeah, it means word. What was that? Yeah, what does it mean pre Bible? Like according to the Greek traditions.
You're gonna deal with my argument, or I will move on to someone else. Okay.
Okay.
So what causes logic to be true? That's not God.
I don't believe anything causes logic to be true. I believe that logic is an intrinsic nature, intrinsic part of God.
It's not just intrinsic. No, something has to cause it to be true. So
no.
Okay, well, I'm just going to move on. Thanks for coming.
You couldn't address any arguments. You're too intellectual, honestly. You embarrassed yourself. Like, you said or something. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. But you said that nothing causes logic to be true. How's that not embarrassing?
I never said nothing causes logic to be true. Okay, like, in that sense. I said in that sense, like, logic is just true because it's just an intrinsic part of God, like, according to majority of intellectuals. So, like, saying that or something causes logic to be true.
Wait, you believe in God?
Sure, if you want to go off that statement, like, but I don't want to argue. I don't want to argue against that because I don't believe in what you're saying. So,
you don't believe God causes logic to be true?
Yeah, because I'm agnostic, but I'm arguing of your position. Your position does not even make sense. If I was a Christian, right? Imagine a Christian is debating against the resurrection, like debating against the gospel. It doesn't make sense. Why would I argue on your behalf?
You're using logic. So what would cause the logic that you're freaking using to talk to me? What causes that?
Nothing causes logic, bro.
Nothing causes it. So then how are you talking to me? Do you see how your position is crazy?
No, logic is just intrinsic, bro.
You can't even explain it's just intrinsic. Okay, thanks for coming.
No, why do you believe in the Bible, though? That's my genuine question.
Yeah, because so I can be logical and I don't get up on a panel.
No, why would we believe in the Bible? Like, I could believe in Harry Potter. Like,
so I can use logic. I can debate and use logic. I don't end up on a panel like you where I can't explain how I'm using logic. So that's why I believe
Okay,
in the
I have a
Bible.
question. Why would I believe in the story of Jesus being crucified and going up to the heavens? Why would I believe that as being true? Like, if we're going off logic, right? But there has to be some sort of empirical evidence, like witnesses that make it a high likelihood. No.
If you can't deny it because it's necessarily true, Jesus's identity claims can't be rationally denied. Or else
I'm
it's like
saying,
denying
and
logic itself.
it's a historical argument. It's not an ontological argument, bro.
Okay, this is going over your head, but thanks for
No,
coming.
it's not going over your head. Why would you believe in the Bible?
Yeah. What's up for the people?
How you doing? So yeah, I think I think that I think a lot of people are confused because a lot of people, they want empirical evidence, they want demonstrable evidence for God, and I think that's what people want. And I think people don't understand the precept argument. They think that it doesn't make sense or that but the precept argument actually is not really a new argument. People think that it's new or something, but it's actually an old argument that um, theologians, philosophers produced in order to ground um, epistemology and ontology, things like that. So I don't get why people are acting like the precept argument is something new. But yeah. I only have one question for you because I don't really want to take up a lot of time here. I have things to do. But my question is, so how would you disprove other religions? Because a Muslim could make a similar claim and say that they ground logic in Allah, or a Hindu person could make a claim that they ground logic in Vishnu. So how would you tackle that problem?
Well, yeah, it depends on their religion, I suppose. So like Allah, we could show like the Quran says Allah is a deceiver, and if your God's a deceiver, he has to be truth revealing, because then they're gonna have like, what if their God's lying to them? Like we don't have that problem as Christians because we say God always tells the truth. So that'd be a problem for Islam. For like Hinduism, they say like everything is God. So then how did they get like, we could argue something like, how do you have moral distinctions if everyone's God? Then how can you say like something's good or evil because we're all just God?
I think Hinduism is more complex than that because I've looked into Hinduism, and they do have distinctions even in their godhead. They do have
there's no ultimate distinction. Ultimately everything is Brahman. We're talking about ultimate distinctions. There's no ultimate. Ultimately everything is Brahman. So then if ultimately everything's Brahman, I'm Brahman, you're Brahman, that's going to lead, it's not, if I say something's good and you say something's good, like we can't, there's no objective standard there to say like, because we're both Brahman. You see what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. Everything's kind of collapsed as a monistic position. But yeah, in Hinduism they do have, that they're, even in their godhead, they do have an ultimate being, and they do have beings that they would consider to be
no, they
good.
don't. They say everything is Brahman. It's pantheism. That means the whole universe, everything is God. Everything is ultimate. It doesn't make sense. It leads to like absurdity. They have like, it's like pluralism or something, or like if it's monism, then there's no distinctions between things. So there's no
I see
logic.
what you're saying. So you would say that to disprove other religions, that Christianity has the best ability to make an account for epistemology and metaphysics.
It's necessary. It's the only story that can explain like like logic, causality, morality, beauty. It's the only thing that explains our experience. No other position can explain. No other story can explain the experience. What we experience.
I know that's tough for me to accept, because I mean I've looked at other religions and they do have explanations for those things. even in a naturalistic sense, I mean, people do try to explain those things. So I wouldn't say Christianity is the only way to actually to ground those things, but I guess if one wanted to argue that Christianity has the best basis or the most sophisticated basis for
It's not the
explaining those
best.
things, then
We argue it's necessary. It's the only one that can. No. Only Christians can explain anything. No one can explain anything except for Christians, because only Christians have in philosophy. It's called like a single unifying principle. There's no other worldview that has that.
I understand what you're saying. I think that's hard. That would be. I mean, I'm thinking like if you were debating, say, Richard Dawkins or something like that, or you were debating Sam Harris, um, I think, yeah, I mean, you could make that assertion, but I think that would be hard to defend.
It's easy to defend. So, what would be the single unifying principle that's not the Christian God?
The thing about it is, I say it's hard to defend because if you were debating, say, Sam Harris or somebody like that, they would say, well, what's the evidence? Why should we accept that position?
Oh, because if you deny a single unifying principle, then you wouldn't have any unity among events, and you wouldn't have unity among facts. And without unity between facts and events, there's no explanations. So a single unifying principle is necessary to explain anything. If you don't have that, you can't explain things. Only Christians have that. Sam Harris couldn't say shit on that.
But couldn't he just say that, he's able to explain things because of observations and the evidence is repeatable? And
No. If all you have is observations can't explain anything.
But the observations explain something about reality, correct? There's some sort of...
No, they need unity. Because if you can't connect one observation, if all observations are isolated, they don't explain anything. You have to be able to connect observations together. Do you ever observe the connection between observations?
I would say in terms of science, that depends on
the answer is no. We don't observe the connection between our observations, or we don't observe the similarity between observations. And since we don't observe that, observations can't explain anything. Because there's no connection between the observations, the events. Events need a connection that's not observed. We can only have that through God's revelation. There's no way out of that. Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins or any genius, they can't fix that.
So okay, so you're saying that this boils down to an issue with metaphysics and epistemology, correct?
It's an issue with metaphysics and our limitations as humans. We can't make metaphysical claims because we're limited. Only God can make metaphysical claims. And we need metaphysical claims to make sense of like science or anything.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, all right. Well, all right, thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, man, I tried. I don't know if I succeeded, but I tried.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. Have a great day. You can remove me now.
All right, man, you too. I wish you well.
Yeah, God bless.
I'm not sure if you're a Christian, then God bless. Welcome, Will.
Yo, what's up?
What's up, man?
Hey, I think I've seen you in what's his name? The Atheist Killer. What's his? Is that like what he goes by?
Garth Dawkins?
No, not him. Is that him? Same guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm
He's
friends
a
with
precept?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what I am. I'm trying to figure out like where to ground myself.
So, well, I mean, I just make an argument to prove Christianity. I don't know if this like, not necessarily trying to convert people. I just like prove the Bible's true.
Well,
But,
it's
like,
not hard to prove the Bible's true. I mean, think about Think about what all these atheists like. They like to argue what a good God is, or what a good God would do, what a good God wouldn't do, this and that. I mean, what I would argue is that a good God would do exactly what Christ did. Like, even if there are just some accounts of it, if it's not incomplete accounts, like the life of Christ is the perfect like moral example. Like Christ is a perfect moral exemplar. So we would expect, one, a perfect moral exemplar, and two, God, a good God, to solve the problem of evil, and he did. So what? Why? What's their problem now? Like, it's cope. It's literal cope.
Yeah, I don't understand atheism. That's why kind of why I do this. It's like I'm fascinated by like how could anyone even think that's like a rational or a reasonable thing to think is true.
Well, they view it as what's it called? Circular reasoning, right? They think God is true because true. No, at the end of the road, like at the end of the epistemological road, you're gonna get to nothing is really true, or we can't know anything, or something is true and we can know it, and that truth is love, and that is what Christ shows.
Yes, I agree.
And if you get to the end of that road and you're deciding between, oh, well, nothing's real or nothing's true, and truth is love, or love is truth, then I think I'm going to go for the latter option there. I don't know why we need to create all these like major cope systems to like explain why everything matters, and you know why we can choose a purpose and we can construct meaning, guys. Even though that's definitely not how language started. We could never have communicated anything if we weren't communicating an immaterial yet perceived meaning, right?
Yeah, God would give us like inherent meaning in the world. And so without God, the meaning in the world would just be basically invented, made up by us, so it wouldn't be real.
Well, it wouldn't apply to reality. That's my and then here's another critique I have of atheism. This is an internal critique. Nothing material can exist, right? Metaphysically in that worldview.
Immaterial?
No, nothing. Well, yeah, nothing immaterial can exist, right?
Well, no, it depends. There's some atheists. I mean, typically you're right. Most atheists are going to be materialists, but there are some weird ones that are going
Like
to say
substance dualists.
I mean, you could be like
substance dualist atheist, like fucking Dean.
I mean, you could be that. You could be an idealist. Some atheists might say that all there is like mental substance that's ideal.
Yeah, that's like fucking crazy horseshoe nihilism.
But yeah, I think idealism would have trouble like explaining like the law of non-contradiction if everything is A. But anyways, but in general, they're all going to be materialists, I guess. But yeah.
Well, it's the same way. I mean,
they have trouble explaining immaterial objects. And like,
well, what is oh my gosh,
you can't really make sense of our experience without immaterial objects, because we experience immaterial things like love or justice, or arguments are immaterial. For example, words, math. Like math is immaterial. How do they explain math?
Yeah, how do you explain? Well, here's the thing: you have E equals MC squared or whatever. They like matter and energy are the only things that exist in the universe. Bro, what the fuck is energy? Define energy without any immaterial concept, or like, energy, can I fucking sense energy without a concept of time? How do we perceive time objectively? Can they answer these questions ever? No.
Well, we can perceive like physical time, I guess.
Physical time? How do we perceive physical time?
Well, no, I've just been reading about time. There's like metaphysical and there's physical time, and metaphysical time we can't measure, but physical time we can measure. So I don't know, timey-wimey, but yeah, I don't know. Atheism can't. The general thing is that atheism fails to explain what we experience. So
Well, again, okay, so you can measure time objectively. How can you objectively measure time? Explain that.
With like a watch.
Okay, well, yeah, but that doesn't exist though. Like, you look at your watch, you see you take a snapshot in your mind, right, of that moment, and then you look at your watch again, and then it's different. Therefore, time has passed. That's how you measure time. Is that right?
Yeah. The watch
Well,
measure.
that's interesting. So how do you measure that if nobody's looking? Like, how do you measure that if you couldn't see?
Well, you have to see to measure it.
Uh-huh. So you have to see to observe? Is that what you're saying? What else do you have to do to observe?
I don't know, lots of things.
You have to, you have to think, you have to like reason, or like do some math sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to do experiments, right?
Yeah.
So my question is like, how do you have intelligibility if knowledge does not pre-exist us? Right? And that, I mean, you're like, I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's like been 2 weeks and I've literally been moving away from political TikTok and just moving towards thinking about this sort of stuff more because it's just more interesting to me at this point in time. Plus, I've been talking about Eugene Carroll for like months, and I just don't want to hear anything about Eugene Carroll ever again. So
I don't know anything about politics, so. Well, do you mind if I move on to someone else? I mean,
yeah, no, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, man. Thanks. All right, Josh. Welcome.
What's going on, man?
What's going on? Just proving God exists.
Yeah, so I was just listening to the other guy, and I think a lot of what he was saying was nonsense, right? When you're looking at like everything being love, that's a ridiculous notion. If you're looking at what his like understanding of time was, that's a ridiculous notion as well. Like, what'd you say, sorry?
I don't know if he said everything is love. I think we were saying like love is the most fundamental thing.
What does that actually mean? What's the definition of love?
Love is like when you want the best for someone, regardless. Like God is love. Like.
Yeah, but if we look at human history, I would say that most people are self-centered and they do things for their own gain, right? Like, for example, the Machiavellian way of thinking, I think, is inherently true.
Yeah, people are corrupt because we're in a fallen state. We've rebelled against God.
So yeah, well, that's presuming that your God is real. What about the Greek gods that were not like this love God you have?
Well, yeah, they're not. Those are nonsense, obviously.
Well, they're nonsense. Why?
Because we objectively prove. We now know that Christianity is true because the transcendental argument for God objectively proves that Christianity is true.
Bruh. Are you kidding me?
No. Are you kidding me?
So you're just presuming it's true because of the transcendental argument? Could you outline why exactly that cannot be applied to every other religion?
Yeah, it's specifically for the Christian religion because the attributes of the Christian worldview are exclusive, so no other worldview has those attributes, and they're indispensable, meaning they're necessary. Like it's necessary for you and I to breathe, to continue living. So
Yeah, so when you're looking at like the beginning of the universe, are you saying that you understand the necessary preconditions for that like universe to begin?
I'm saying that it's not about the beginning of the universe, but it's about our experience. We can understand our experience, and the Christian worldview is necessary for us to understand our experience.
When you say we understand our experience, to what degree do we understand it? If I'm hallucinating, am I understanding the same as you?
No, I'm saying we can understand the world so that like science is possible, for example, or philosophy is possible.
Okay, well, I could say that as an atheist.
No, and atheism, science, and philosophy would be impossible.
Why was that? Why would that be?
Because God explains like the fundamental parameters of experience, and without that, they would fall apart. Like, to do science, you need to have uniformity of nature, and only God can explain the uniformity of nature. You wouldn't.
Well,
Like,
God cannot explain it, right? Because if we're looking at the uniformity of nature, Hume, like obviously he was a Christian, but he denoted and kind of argued against this Christian logic. How can you prove cause and effect? You're just using circular reasoning to imply that it exists.
Hume was not a Christian.
Hume was a Christian. What are you talking about?
He was anti-Christian. He hated Jesus.
No, he wasn't. What?
Yes, he was. He had after he died, he had this thing published where he attacked Christianity.
Well, from my knowledge, I thought he was a Christian, right?
Your ass backwards.
Yeah, so if we're looking at his argument, right? His critique of this cause and effect, what's the response to that?
Yeah, God would be the single unifying principle that connects events.
Yeah, that's not answering the question.
Yeah, it is. It's his issue with cause and effect is that we never observe the force or principle that connects the events together. The cause and the effect, they're two events. We don't observe the force or principle that connects them. Well, God reveals himself as the principle that connects events.
Yeah, I understand. So you're presuming it's real because someone stated it to be true. I just looked it up. Hume was, in different works, he's saying that it's actually unclear. He was Christian in some works and not Christian in other works. So it's up for debate.
It's not. No, that's not. No.
I've just looked it up, right? So you can, if you don't trust me, you can look it up yourself.
I've read a book on Hume. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Stop getting so angry, dude.
Well, I'm going to kick you. I've read a book on Hume. He's a fucking atheist.
I've read Hume's
books.
It's
not debatable. It's not debatable. He is an atheist. What is this nonsense? So anyways, yeah, Revelation solves like Hume's problem of induction. Revelation solves his argument against causality, and Revelation solves his argument against identity over time. So we defeat Humean skepticism with God's revelation.
Yeah, so your God's revelation is just your presumed belief that it exists. For example, when we're looking at the past, say for example nowadays, what if I
have an argument, it's true, dipshit, deal with the argument. That's
no, I understand the argument. The argument relies upon just like, it's kind of just cherry picking. So you say you have these conditions, right? And these conditions are only for Christians because Christians are the only ones who stated it. Is that correct?
That's incorrect. We're just asking the question that like started metaphysics. It's not like this is just the way that Christians look at the world. No, this is just standard questions in philosophy. Like, what is ultimate reality, right? I'm saying ultimate reality is God. And if you're honest, you're going to say, oh, I don't know what ultimate reality is. But the problem is if you say, I don't know ultimate reality, that results in metaphysical destruction where you can't have knowledge or logic or truth.
Yeah, so that's just your presumed belief.
It's not my presumed belief, dipshit. It's a problem in philosophy for everyone, not just me, dipshit.
Yeah, so I can explain, right? So
you can't explain anything because you don't have a
Yeah, so your pause, but the explanation is that you just presume you're right, so you can talk on something, right? If I
Incorrect.
say that I have a random God,
No, I'm not just no, I'm making an argument.
well, your
Okay.
argument relies upon your presumption being correct.
No.
Yes, it does.
No.
If it wasn't so, then you wouldn't be outlining your argument.
Oh my god, dude.
Are you listening to the words I'm saying?
Yeah, but you don't understand what's going on, okay? So we both speak through a model of reality, right?
Yeah, we speak through the same model of reality.
No.
How so? Do we have different senses?
No, we have different models of reality. Like, I affirm the creator-creature distinction, right? You don't.
Yeah, but when we're looking at the model of reality from perspection and from observation, we have the same set of tools. There's some people who have a very different tools, right? Because they could have like severe disabilities.
Okay, so are you familiar with the movie The Matrix?
Yes.
Okay, so in The Matrix, they have science and they have philosophy just like we have in our world, right? It's the same. It's the idea is The Matrix is the same as our world.
Oh yeah, I don't believe in the Matrix in our world. I don't believe we're in a simulation.
Okay, you don't believe it, but can you prove it?
Can I prove we're not in a simulation? Sure. I would say that it's not very.
So now you're lying to me. That's what we're gonna do.
Well, I haven't even finished my sentence.
Well, I know for a fact before you even start that you cannot prove that we're not in a simulation. You can't prove
Okay, so
that.
so why would you ask a question? It's kind of like at the start of the Bible. Why would Adam and Eve be put through a test God knew they were going to fail?
It's a rhetorical question because I'm trying to show you the absurdity of your dumb position.
Yeah, so I'm trying to show you the absurdity of your book, right?
But you can't.
Well, I can. If you're looking at the start of the Bible, right, you get Adam and Eve to suffer from what he already knew they were going to do.
Whoa! Before we can talk about my book, you're gonna have to account for like the transcendental categories to even argue. You can't argue until you answer the transcendental challenge.
Yeah, so you haven't put forth the challenge. All you've stated is that you're right,
Your
I'm wrong.
worldview has to account for intelligibility. So you have to tell me what ultimate reality is. But you can't.
Yeah, so well, I could try, right? I would say that if we're looking at Plato's allegory of the cave, I would invoke
Josh, human reasoning and observation cannot tell us anything about ultimate reality. So you're gonna lie to me?
Wait, oh my gosh,
are you
you've
gonna
just
lie
destroyed
to
your
me?
own argument. You've just destroyed your own
Josh,
argument.
are you going to lie to me?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so Josh, let's admit the truth. You don't know what ultimate reality is, do you?
I do.
Josh, why are you lying to me?
Well, I know the concept of ultimate reality.
Okay, what is ultimate reality? That's not God. What is it?
Just I'll state this, but just to let you know that you defeated yourself with your previous statement, right? Because you said that we humans cannot comprehend, we cannot understand ultimate reality, but then you're invoking God as though your concept of God is correct, meaning that your previous sentence is redundant. So you've just made a contradiction.
I'm not saying that I know God through my reason and my observations. I'm saying I know God because God takes the initiative to reveal himself to me. And since we must know...
But wait, how do you know that?
Because we live in an environment of God's revelation where his invisible qualities are made obvious and unambiguously clear to everyone.
And are they clear from observation?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, so that means that your previous statement is wrong again, because you said we cannot observe because we are humans. We cannot know ultimate reality. But then you're saying, though, no, we do know it because God has put it so we can know it. What, are you contradicting yourself again, buddy?
Josh, could we know if God purposes the world that the world not know God, would we know God?
Wait, say that again. If God purposed the world?
That we don't know God, would we know God?
I'm not. Could you put that in a different framework? I'm not really understanding what that
God
means.
intends that the world doesn't know God. Can the world know God?
Does God put parameters on us not
If
conceiving
God
God?
intends that the world does not know him, can the world know him?
Well, if he puts things in place that we can't know him, then we can't know him.
Okay, so the only way we can know God is if God takes the initiative to make himself known to us, okay? And that's what revelation is. That's what I'm saying. The only way we can know God is if God reveals himself to us. So that's a different type of knowledge that doesn't come from observation or human reason.
Well, you
There you
said
go.
it is. You said that God made it clear from, it's basically self-evident from observation. Thus, you believe that God has revealed himself. You're not in
Revelation
the
is a
time.
knowledge that, dumbass. Revelation is a knowledge that comes from God, okay?
So wait, so
Knowledge
is
comes
revelation
from God. It doesn't come from observation as its ultimate source. The ultimate source is God. Dipshit.
Oh wait, oh, this is even better. So are you saying that there's an intrinsic quality of God within you?
Well, I'm made in the image of God. Yeah, that's true.
So in this, so for example, do you know God before you know, before you can comprehend your sense perceptions? So do you know him a priori to your reason?
Yes.
And how do you back that up?
Because we're made in God's image. So
Beautiful.
because
So
God
you
designed...
use circular
Stop
reasoning and you say
talking.
you presume.
Oh, is that do you deny self-authenticating starting points?
Yeah, the presumption arguments are circular reasoning.
Stop. Do you deny self-authenticating starting points?
Well, if the self-authenticating starting point is
Answer my
that,
fucking question or I will kick you, Josh. Do you deny self-authenticating starting points? In principle
No.
or just specifically with the Bible?
No.
Okay, so why can't the Bible be my self-authenticating starting point?
Because it's a secondary starting point, right? So, for example, the first primary starting point for everybody is that reality exists. The second one you're claiming is that you know God, right? That is a presumption, right? A presumption is not based...
Josh, how can you say reality exists? What is
because
reality?
I have the first one that everyone has. You're just adding to it.
Josh, what is reality?
Yeah, reality is what I can see.
Is reality a physical or a mental substance, Josh?
It depends on who you ask, but I would say that like it's a mixture of both.
If you don't, okay.
Because when you're looking at your imagination, right?
Josh.
Yeah.
Neo in the Matrix, he lives in a matrix, right? Science and philosophy can't tell him that his actual reality is a matrix. Do you understand, Josh?
So you're saying that Neo...
Josh. Yeah, Neo doesn't know what reality is because he's denied God's revelation. And all he has is science and philosophy. But science and philosophy can't tell us that we live in a simulation or not. Can it, Neo or Josh?
It's a strange question, but I would say that like
Josh, science cannot prove that the world isn't a simulation, can it?
Yeah, well, if you're saying fundamentally, can anything be proven? No.
Okay, Josh, I'm just gonna...
Well, I don't know why you would kick me. I'm not like saying
you're not... Just fucking answer my question. So because science can't tell us what reality is, right? You can't speak about reality in any sort of meaningful way unless God reveals to you what reality is. Because you don't even know, you have no idea what reality is.
Okay, so let's look at it from a different lens. Can an animal, like a dog, know what reality is?
Josh, let's focus on what I'm saying to you. Josh, no. Josh, we're focusing right now, okay?
Sure.
You don't know if reality is the Matrix or not, correct? So so truth can't correspond to reality because you don't even know what reality is. You need God to tell you what reality is because your reason and your observations can't tell you what reality is.
Yeah,
You get
so
this, Josh?
from that reasoning, it's perfect, because then I would say that how can I trust God and know God is God? How do you know God is God?
God is the self-authenticating authority in the system.
Yeah, but how do you know that is God? How do you not know that's someone playing a trick on you like a devil, right? So if we're looking at Descartes.
Because, Josh, that would be a self-defeating claim.
Well, how so?
Oh, well, in the worldview where God lies to you, there is no possibility for truth. So that worldview doesn't answer the transcendental challenge. And since the Christian worldview does answer the transcendental challenge, the Christian worldview is a transcendental necessity.
Yeah, so it's a really strange argument, and I hear it a lot, right? When you're saying you're presuming this transcendental argument is correct, right? This isn't correct, okay? Because this like argument
Josh, I'm presenting an argument, okay? I've made an argument that God's revelation is the necessary worldview to answer the transcendental challenge, right? So now you have to offer a defeater or an undercutter to my argument.
Yeah, sure. So the critique would be the revelation itself. How do you know that revelation is true?
Okay, this is not a response to
Well,
the argument.
that's a critique of your argument relies upon revelation.
Like a dog that returns to a
that's
vomit.
fundamental.
Like a dog that returns to a vomit, a fool to his folly. I already explained to you how I know the revelation's true.
You're saying it's true because it has to be
Josh,
true.
are you going to respond to the argument or not?
Yeah, I am responding, but you're
okay.
Just...
So then, what is ultimate reality that's not God, Josh?
Yeah, I would say ultimate reality because we cannot physically say what it is, then we have to go to an analogy. And if we look at Plato's allegory of the cave, it perfectly demonstrates what ultimate reality would be.
Thanks for coming, Josh. Do you mind in the future never coming back? Thank you. I wish you well. What a horrible person. Jesus. Totally useless.
How's it going, mate?
It's going good. Just talking to scumbags. How are you?
Yeah, all right.
Nice.
Can I ask you a question? So you said that you talk to God?
No. God reveals himself to everyone.
He reveals. So has God revealed himself to you?
Yeah, I'm included in the set of everyone, yes.
How does he do that?
God reveals himself through natural revelation, which is there's natural order, there's a causal order, there's a conceptual order, there's beauty in the world, and there's morality in the world, and only God can explain all those things.
Oh, okay. Is God all powerful and all knowing?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So what does he tell like people to go do like his work and stuff like that? Well, why can't he just do himself? Like, why can't he just flick his fingers and like do his work instead of telling Moses and go do this and go tell these people here to go do this, and why can't he do it himself? He's all powerful and all knowing.
Well, because we're like his children, and he just wants a relationship with his children.
That doesn't even make sense. Sense. Why can't he just do it himself?
Because he wants us to freely choose him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't even make sense, man. Like.
Okay.
He created Adam and Eve, and like, and he stuffed that up. Like, it seems like he's not all knowing and all powerful.
Well, I mean, how would you know anything about God unless God revealed it to you?
I don't think God has revealed himself to anyone. It's
well, then
all
why
a lie.
Are you talking about? So why are you bullshitting me?
People just make up stuff.
So then why are you sitting here just making stuff up and lying to me? Why don't you fuck off?
Oh, what you're a fucking delusional fucking clown, mate. You don't know anything about reality.
Well,
I
I'm not
heard
the
you
one
talk
that's
about
going on
I
people's
heard you
panels and
talk about the
lying,
other guy about
fucker.
reality, and you're the fucking delusional fucking clown that doesn't know anything about reality, mate. You're a fucking
You
freak.
just came up on
That's
my
what you are,
panel and you want to fucking lie.
mate. That's what you are, mate. You're a freak. You're a fucking clown.
All right.
Yeah. Talk fucking out of your fucking asshole all the time.
That's what you just did. You just came up here and
Yeah,
made
man.
all these
Yeah.
claims about God. And
That's
then
what
said,
you do, mate.
I can't know anything
That's
about
why
God.
you butt head all day and all fucking night having a conversation with someone about God.
All right,
and
man.
never comes to conclusion that 1 + 1 is.
Bye-bye.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. God bless you.
God bless, man.
Yeah, I'm a Christian. I'm 67 years old. I'm gay, and I have a very personal relationship with God in my heart and in my mind. When I'm walking around, I am in the moment, and I'm always in conversation with God. You know that second voice you hear in your head? I listen, and I walk the path of God. Of course, I veer off it and sin, and then I get back on the path, and I try to stay on the path, but we're meant to sin. So,
Well, yeah, we're all sinners. We're gonna sin. We're obviously not like Jesus. We're not gonna be perfect.
yeah, we're not perfect.
But we're supposed to try our best to do the right thing.
Exactly. Exactly. And it does take work.
Yeah.
I'm 67 years old, and I've been this way since I was 12.
Right on, man. Well, I'm glad to hear that you have a relationship with Jesus. It's good.
Yeah, that other guy that you had on was just like, whoa, so I wanted to come on and give some support to everybody and let you know that there are many sides of carrying God in your heart. And I'm a human being just like everyone else.
Yeah,
And
I understand there's a lot of people.
I know that God works in my life. I know He works miracles in my life. I've seen it happen. And so when I'm outside, I notice the trees and the grass and the cat running around. And, I see God in all plant life. It's just amazing to me.
Same here, man. We're on the same page, but yeah, some people they get kind of emotional. I mean, I understand like not everyone has the same experience. Like, there's like religious cults out there, and they can turn people to make people pretty angry towards God. So I kind of understand some of like where people are coming from, but they're not really being rational. They are ultimately it's coming from a place of emotion because I think God is obvious. I don't think we can really rationally deny Him. So that's
exactly. I mean, there's proof. I mean, we only have this moment. We only have this moment in time. I have a book that's called Remember, Be Here Now. So if you're talking now, but your head's like 10 feet, going miles an hour, you will misspeak. I've made all these mistakes. I meditate and prayer and meditation every morning and every evening. And I'm not a fanatic. I'm just a human being that loves all other human beings.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Thanks for sharing your testimony, but could you mind if I give someone else a chance?
No, please. And no, thank you for letting me up. And I appreciate your moderator if you have one. And I really appreciate you and everybody on your I forget what it's called down there.
Right on, man. Well, God bless you.
Okay, thank you. See you soon.
Okay, so I have a question. Why do you believe in God? Is there any reason to believe in God and not to a fucking random, a fucking ponytail
Yeah,
that created
because
everything?
we humans understand our experience through like a narrative or story, and the story in the Bible is like the only narrative that can explain what we experience. So to deny the Bible is like to deny our experience.
What do you mean explains everything?
Like there's order in the world or something, right? And so the Christian
There's no
Bible,
order.
there's no order in the world.
No.
Well,
at least in the sense that you are thinking about it.
How could you do science then if there's no order? There's obviously consistency because we do science.
Look, if I drop a bottle of water in the ground and the water spills out everywhere, is that order? Yes or no?
In a sense, that's order because the
Okay,
bottle.
then that order can happen without God. You don't
No.
need God to have that order.
What
God,
would
water could fall down and spill everywhere without God controlling it.
What would consistently cause the water to fall down if it's not like God?
Gravity.
Yeah, but gravity is a type of order.
No, it exists because of the matter. And matter, it's just matter, it doesn't have order. Like if we have a really big object like the Earth, then gravity exists, not because of God.
Gravity acts in a consistent way. I'm asking, what would explain the consistency of gravity's behavior? What explains the consistency of gravity besides God?
Why wouldn't it be consistent? Is there a possible way for it to not be consistent?
If there's nothing limiting gravity's properties, then gravity's properties would have a limit. What limits the
There
property?
is something, it's called the Earth. The mass of the Earth, that's what.
Well, no. Gravity has like what's it called? Like a dependent relationship with mass, but it doesn't, the Earth doesn't cause gravity to consistently behave the same way all the time.
How so? If you are standing in this part of the Earth that I am right now and I drop a cup of water, then it's gonna be the same. If I drop it 1,000 times, it's gonna be the same. But if you are like in the other corner of the world, then yeah, it's gonna be different. No one's denying that. So are you saying that it's not consistent because you can stand in different places? If so, then yeah, I agree.
Yeah, God's required for that consistency. There wouldn't be.
Yeah, but that consistency is not real. The gravity is stronger here than it is in somewhere else.
No,
So it's not consistent.
There's a gravitational constant that's consistent. The constant is consistent. It behaves the same way consistently depending upon its relationship to mass. There's distance and amount of mass.
Yeah, because the mass is what's doing the thing.
I don't know. This is going over your head. I might just like move on. So thanks for coming, man. Wish you well. Might have been a language barrier there. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question actually. Why did God save the Israelite, from the Egyptian, but didn't save the Jew and didn't save the black from slavery? I mean, did he thought that those people weren't worthy of having human rights? I mean, living like humans?
Of course he did. So when Christians took power in Rome, they ended slavery due to Christian influence. So
When?
when after Constantine in Rome.
Oh, well, but in what years?
I don't know the exact year.
Because if we are talking about Rome, first of all, it's not from Rome that slavery ended. And
There was
so
slavery in the Roman Empire, and then because of Christian influence, Christians
Mhm.
ended slavery in the Roman Empire. So Christianity in the Bible is against like cruel and oppressive treatment of people.
Okay, but like it didn't stop the slavery. It didn't stop the slavery.
Yes, it did.
No, it didn't. Because in France, no, it didn't. Because in France, there was slavery until not that long, actually. I mean, from here, it was very long ago, but it didn't. And I know this because if I don't know what you learn
Are
in.
you French?
Yes, I'm French, so I kind of know history, you know?
Are you Canadian French or French?
No, I'm French from France. We learn history, and I don't know what kind of history you learn in your country, but
I learned history from a very famous French person named Jacques Ellul.
Who?
He was a professor at the University of Bordeaux. Jacques Ellul. He was a professor of the history of law. So he was a history professor.
then you must know that slavery ended because of those who were what we call the Lumière. The Lumière or how do we say that in English? Were the people who were intellectually, we can say, advanced and wanted to end slavery. Also, slavery ended first by Napoleon and was brought back again. So you cannot tell me that it ended from Rome because it didn't. The same thing for the Jew. Who helped the Jew? And why were the Jew helped? They were helped because it was coinciding, you know, it was intertwining with France and other. Yes, you can show me the name, but it is not stopping the truth.
Okay, well, I'm not an expert in history, but this is what this author is.
Yeah, there's no problem with that, but what I am saying to you is written, you know?
Here's what he says. Not all at once, but progressively under Christian influence, and not because of technical improvements, as is often stated today, slavery disappeared in the Roman Empire.
Yes, in the Roman Empire, but I'm talking slavery of black people.
Yes.
And it wasn't in the Roman Empire. In the Roman Empire.
Oh, well, like in America, yeah, but that
No, it was not only in America. The Caribbean were like the source of. It was where a lot of slavery was happening.
Well, this is what he writes. He talks about there's slavery in other parts of the Roman Empire, but then he says the general thesis that there was no more slavery in Christendom is true. Thus, the proclamation that everyone in the kingdom of France is free was correct, and was even allowed, although perhaps theoretically, that the moment slaves arrived in France, the mere fact of setting foot on French soil made them free. This is wholly in keeping with Christian thinking. This is what Ellul says. This is what it says in this book. I just read it.
Yeah, but
see, everyone in the kingdom of France is free. This is a Christian thinking. That's what he's saying.
Well, there were not. Also, when you look at history, the people, when slavery ended, and like it was not so long ago, actually it was from the 90s, the 90s, the 80s, people who were Caribbean who wanted to come to France were not even considered human. Like they were still like treated like crap.
That's
So
probably because of scientific racism, though, not Christianity.
okay, well, guess what? There was a line written in the Bible that I guess they erased, or they said that it was something else. I mean, they tried to make it look like something else, but there was a phrase who said that you had to let your slave free the Sunday. And I'm sorry, but if you have a loving God, why saying this?
Well, if you look at the original, like King James version of the Bible, that word that's used for slave there, eved, it should be better translated as servant. It's talking about like servant. These are voluntary workers. They had rights. They weren't treated cruelly. So there weren't like this in ancient Israel, these like slave class that was oppressed and treated cruelly, that didn't have rights, that didn't exist.
All right. So
It wasn't really in ancient Israel.
I looked up for the 15th century, and I can tell you that the abolition of slavery in France happened in 1848.
Okay.
And that was when people couldn't take black as slave ever again. And those people were the French people who were Christian. And
Yeah,
it's also the same issue for the Jew. I mean, why didn't he do something? Because I kind of cannot understand.
But you're not looking at why do you think they passed the law to end slavery? It was because Christians argued that the Bible said that like freedom is a Christian biblical value. That's why you think slavery is wrong because of your Christian values. So like what are you trying to argue here? The Christian history on slavery is favorable to Christianity.
Why? I'm trying to understand why didn't he do something? Because he did something for the Israelite.
What are you talking about? The Christians ended slavery. He did do something. You said
Okay.
yourself.
But it didn't stop. He said, I'm okay with you. You said, yeah. He said, stop the slavery. But did it stop? I mean, he didn't just said, stop. He didn't just said to the Egyptian, stop, guys. He did something. And now he just saying, stop. And that's it. So
I understand. The Christian God is against slavery. He's not for slavery.
So from my perspective, there are people for him who are more valuable than others.
No. The Bible does not.
Yes, because
no.
You for a race, you just said stop, and for the other, you are doing a lot more. What? Even for the Jew, what did he do for the Jew, who were under the German?
He let the Jews be conquered by Rome. He punished them because they refused to follow him. And yeah, they're his chosen people, but being chosen isn't like a good thing necessarily, because if I chose you to do my laundry, you wouldn't like that really, but you'd be chosen. So he doesn't. God doesn't. God's impartial. He doesn't favor specific people, but he chose
Well,
the Jews
kind of.
part. No,
He kind of do because
he kind of
he
don't.
he let white people control black people from the start
No, he
without
didn't.
doing a single thing. I don't remember him doing something for black people. Well, he's gone. I'm not saying that white weren't slaves, but who had the most slaves? Like, if you don't have like an history education big enough, you cannot tell me, yeah, well, there were white slave too. I know that there was white slave. I learned that when I was like, what, 12? Come on. But yet, those who get racism are the black people, not the white people. I don't see white people being racist on white people. So there were white slaves too. Okay. There were also hierarchic level, the king, the poor, the I don't know how you say this in English, the clergy. The clergy is the one who is for the church back then. The clergy is the one who run the church back then. But like when I say back then, it's like wait. It's like it's like in the 1400 year, Oh no, sorry, Dukan, but the one who attacked the black people, even like the Amerindian, the American, the one who were on America in the first place, it's the white who came, the Spanish people. It's the one from Spain and France who came into who came in America and killed them, by giving them disease and forced them to do whatever they wanted because they had the ability to kill them. Also, yeah, the argument of saying like, yeah, he did after all said that slavery was bad. Why didn't he say that in the first place? Yeah, I know it's all human made. Come on. I'm more of a Buddhism philosophical person. Like I chose peace, But those who are listening to the Bible and like try to always, they always judge people. They always judge, hate on people. Why? Your religion is supposed to be peace and love, and yet your people are not just projecting peace and love. So and also they are pushy, you know? They like to push their vision of mine on you. And I don't know. I don't really like